emergency time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday midday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? Thanks very much for being here. I want to start with a special shout out to George from Haifa. Just dropped a $50 Rumble rant on us. So you also gifted 20 subs in the Rumble chat. At the start of the show. So thank you, George. Salutations to you, my friend. Man. That's very kind of you. So thanks, everybody, for being here today. 284 strong in the Rumble chat. Start things off. We're looking at 623 filing in over on YouTube. Let's smash that like button for the algorithm on the early show. Please and thank you very much. We got a lot to get to today. Russ was at a book event last night. Not the one that made most of the news. There was another book event that made a lot of news last night.
There was another one.
We have two book events that we're covering on the show today.
That too.
Yes.
Well, I have it on good authority that this is the most gangster picture that Richard Wolff has ever taken.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That was
I like that
gangster,
shirt,
man.
Yeah, I like that shirt.
I like that. You got the graffiti
like
in the background.
Yeah, I like his style. I like his style. Yeah. So that was great. We're gonna show some video from that as the stream barrels on, but everybody, please do strap in. Like I said, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button if you have not already, and let's get started. We got a lot of big news today. Starting with the Flotilla.
Yes. So this was tweeted out by Francesca Albanese. The Flotilla has been attacked 7 times in a short span. Boats hit with sound bombs, explosive flares, and sprayed with suspected chemicals. So here is someone on the boat while these terrifying events were taking place.
Alert, alert. Unfortunately, the Global Smooth Flotilla is being attacked once again. It's the 6th explosion that we hear. The first was on Oela boat, the second on Yulara boat, the third on Otaria boat, the fourth on Maria Cristina, the 5th in Salvadia. We just heard a new explosion here. They are throwing flashbangs at us. They are jamming the radio communication. They are throwing chemicals like they did in Ulara. This is an attack situation. We know they have been doing these things for psychological warfare. The drones have been above us for a long time, for many nights, but now they are escalating into more severe and more dangerous types of attacks. We send this alert to the world. Pressure your governments. Pressure anyone to pressure the ones that are doing this, and we know very well who they are, to stop this attack. We are less than 600 nautical miles from Gaza. We are a humanitarian, non-violent solidarity mission. We are bringing food and aid to open a humanitarian corridor. We are protected by international law. We are part of the conscience of the world that knows that we cannot allow starving children to stay without food, without aid. So we continue going our mission, but we need you. We need you to rise up. We need you to pressure your governments. We are being attacked right now. So please spread the word. Please don't let this go unpunished and demand a safe passage for the flotilla.
All right, and here is Greg Stoker. The global Samud flotilla is being targeted as of yet non-lethal psychological attacks, which include drones and the hijacking of our VHF radios. They're playing ABBA, probably in line with their weird obsession with Greta. We will not be deterred. Here he is.
Oh, Greg here aboard the veteran boat attached to the Global Samud Flotilla. Our boat was assailed by a quadcopter and they dropped a little popper on deck. A couple boats experienced that as well. And also our VHF radio was hijacked by adversarial comms, and they started playing ABBA. So this is the initiation of the psychological operations that we had mentioned previously. They're beginning off the coast of Crete. Luckily, we have live stream footage that gets stored in a backup. Unfortunately, this was out of frame, but you see we noticed the quadcopter drone run back. Yeah, somewhat startling. Yeah, so I'm going to park my head here so I cover it up, whichever VHF channel we use, but we've been dealing with this all night. Yeah, so that was ABBA. ABBA's from Sweden. Obviously, their weird obsession with Greta Thunberg being on the flotilla may have something to do with it, but we're probably going to be expecting this every night going forward. To just break everyone down psychologically. This is what they are. There's no injuries. Everyone's fine. These are just psychological operations. And they're probably going to increase in intensity and frequency from here on out every time the sun sets. So we appreciate your attention to this matter. Pressure your governments, please, to protect the flotilla, and we will not be deterred. So we're just going to keep on sailing, and they're going to keep doing what they're going to keep doing, and history will be our judge.
And of course, Greg Stoker is a veteran with some expertise in these kinds of operations. Here's some footage that's going around. Pretty scary if you're on the boat, psychological or not. Yeah, you're on there, man. Pretty terrifying.
Yeah, of course.
So the Israel Foreign Ministry put out this statement. We were sorry to hear the response from the Hamas flotilla representative that the flotilla insists on pursuing a violent course of action. Yeah, man, those nurses, teachers, parliamentarians, musicians, that's a tough bunch of monkeys out there. And refuses our proposal to transfer in a coordinated and peaceful manner any aid that might be aboard the flotilla to the Gaza Strip via the nearby Ashkelon Marina. Yeah, no, I have no idea why they don't trust you to actually give this aid to the Gazans that you're in the process of executing a final solution against.
Well, is that going to go to the GHF, where it's going to be part of their concentration camp aid distribution scheme?
Exactly. This response once again highlights the insincerity of the flotilla members and their mission to serve Hamas rather than the people in Gaza. If the flotilla continues to reject Israel's peaceful proposal, Israel will take the necessary measures to prevent its entry into the combat zone and to stop any violation of a lawful naval blockade. That word lawful, I don't think it means what you guys think it means.
Yeah, no.
While making every possible effort to ensure the safety of its passengers. We reiterate, if your intentions are sincere, transfer any such aid to the Ashkelon Marina so it can be forwarded promptly to the Gaza Strip in a peaceful and nonviolent manner. You know, like we're known for doing. So this is David Adler, who's on the flotilla. I will not lie to you. I am scared for our lives on this flotilla. Israel's drumbeat is growing louder, first calling us Hamas flotilla, now slandering our peaceful convoy as pursuing a violent course of action. All points in one lethal direction. Still we sail on. This was put out on September 23rd. This is Carsey Blanton, who I had the privilege to interview at a pro-Palestine rally a couple of weeks ago. She is on the flotilla now, and she sums up what I think the whole world is thinking right now very well.
Good morning. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment being such a chicken shit, punk-ass little bitch that while you're in the middle of trying to corral, bomb, and starve a mostly civilian population, mostly children, you see that there's a couple dozen sailboats full of nurses and teachers and musicians, a couple of high school students, and they're heading toward that population that you're trying to starve to death, and they have some baby formula and some rice on these civilian sailboats. And now I want you to imagine being so insecure that you decide to use the incredible military technology that you've been gifted by the most powerful military in the world, because you're their favorite little Air Force base. I want you to imagine you decide to use that military technology to try and intimidate all of these civilians in sailboats. Who is the terrorist here?
Yep. Now, she is, if you're not familiar with her, she is one of the best kind of protest folk musicians around right now, along with Jesse Wells. So definitely check out her work if you're in LA, and hopefully she gets back safe and sound from the Flotilla. I know, I think her next tour dates are out there. So good news. I didn't hear about these attacks last night. I wonder why. Italy has sent a ship, and now it was just breaking. Now they're sending another ship. This is from Novara Media. Italy has said it's sending a Navy ship to the global Samud Flotilla. Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto strongly condemned the overnight drone attack on the flotilla, which is trying to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. In a statement, Crosetto said he had redirected an Italian Navy ship to head toward the flotilla to offer assistance to Italian citizens on board, and Israel had been informed. Quote, regarding the attacks suffered in recent hours by the Samud flotilla vessels, which also include Italian citizens, carried out using drones by currently unidentified perpetrators. That's what you call diplomacy, folks.
Yeah, they call this ship the Pauly Walnuts. That's the name of this sailing vessel here.
We can only
the Uncle Pauly.
The Uncle Pauly. We can only express the Don Corleone. We can only express the strongest condemnation in a democracy. Even demonstrations and protests must be protected when they are conducted in compliance with international law and without resorting to violence, he said. Now, keep in mind, in a separate statement, they also said if the flotilla enters out of international waters into Israeli waters, or they didn't say Israeli, but it was clear what they meant, that they cannot guarantee their safety. So they're not promising to back the flotilla up for a landing in Gaza. They're promising to back them up in international waters as of now. Nick over at Revolutionary Blackout, that Italian general strike scared the shit out of the Italian ruling class. Yes, it did. And I can tell you from being over there, and this is, you can look this up yourself. They strike in Italy all the time. When I was in Venice, they had a kind of limited strike on the water taxis with the water buses, which are the way you get around there normally. So they're ready and willing to go on strike, very much like France, in a way that if Americans were to do, they might actually get themselves some health care and other things that they need. But over in Europe, the people are much more organized, much more ready to get out in the street. And you can see the result, man. They get a whole ass warship out there to protect the flotilla. You think they're going to drop these flashbangs on them now? They didn't last night. And hey, the Italian dock workers threatened Israeli cargo ban if Gaza flotilla is blocked. We showed that video, or a very passionate speech from one of the dock workers that they will shut down Europe if the flotilla is attacked. There was a general strike in Italy for the flotilla, and This is the result. That's how you get things done.
Yes,
And now,
organized workers can get a lot done. A lot
yes,
done.
yes, exactly. As actually Shama, when we show the video, she talks about that. So does Richard Wolff. So here is the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, President of Spain, rather, announcing today that they are going to join the effort. The government of Spain demands that international law be fulfilled and that the right of our citizens to navigate the Mediterranean is respected in conditions of security. That is why I inform you that tomorrow from Cartagena, we say Cartagena, but I think they say Cartagena, a maritime action ship equipped with all the means in case it was necessary to assist the fleet and carry out some rescue will leave the Mediterranean. All right, so now you have two countries committing literally warships to the effort. Nice going, Israel. You're really uniting the world against you. Brian Rosbiani, breaking. Italy sends a second naval vessel for assistance and protection. Thank you, Spain and Italy, for sending Navy ships to protect the global submarine flotilla after the attacks. And now this looks like it's a rumor. Very funny if it's true. North Korea threatened to nuke Tel Aviv if Israel kills Greta Thunberg. And the person who quote tweeted it said, no, it's fine. I just didn't expect it to be North Korea.
That's funny.
But I have not been able to find any actual reporting on this. So I think it's a meme.
Funny meme.
Very funny meme. Prem Thacker here. Remarkable document. Hundreds of European politicians are calling to mobilize European resources to protect the Samud aid flotilla as it faces escalating attacks on its way to Gaza. In other words, European politicians are trying to protect humanitarian volunteers from Israel, and they have a list of demands essentially for the protection of the flotilla. And as you can see, they've got a lot of signatories from 16 different European countries that signed this. So, yes, I mean, Israel almost by the day is losing support. I've been saying this for a long time. Israel will never be able to recover from this diplomatically. It's going to be a pariah state. I personally believe it's going to collapse, not tomorrow, but ultimately you're never getting a recovery in the tourism industry, and anything coming out of Israel is going to be tainted. Any kind of consumer products, a lot of these boycotts have already been effective against companies like Starbucks, companies like McDonald's, Pizza Hut have lost huge amounts of money in their stock price and in their sales as a result of boycotts. And now you're seeing it, man. Finally, the scale is tipping in Europe, where the momentum is just such that finally its leaders can no longer ignore that there's a genocide going on that a lot of their countries are supporting. Now, many have pointed out these people are talking out of one side of their face at the UN, recognizing Palestine, while many of them have still not stopped weapons sales and weapons agreements to Israel. But that's why you have to do what they did in Italy. You have to get out in the streets and force their hand. Unfortunately, that's more likely going to happen in Europe because, again, the people there are much more activated, much more empowered, and much more organized to go out and do those kinds of actions than Americans are. Like, God bless the people who are going out protesting. We've been among them. But you don't get the kinds of shut down the country protests here that you get over there. And because they're getting that, that's why you're getting this movement from the leadership.
Well, yes, you leverage the power of organized labor.
Right.
That's the key. That's the key. It's not to say that protests aren't good and that they don't do anything. But if we can just be honest and take a step back, objectively speaking, they do far less than when workers organize at their place of work. That's how you really exercise power. and class consciousness has sort of been filtered out of political discourse here in America over the course of, I would say centuries. I would say for our entire existence, really, if you want to go back.
Wolf at the event talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
About how he kept saying that it's been 75 years of Cold War propaganda on the population.
And I would say, big picture, it's further back than that. I mean, America was a revolution of elites against their colonizers, right? You know, who owned slaves at the time that they fought the revolution. But that's perhaps a little too wonky for this.
If George III had just compromised a little bit, they didn't even want to leave the British Empire.
Well, look, I mean, once again, you know, it shows the power of organization. It really shows that the way to fight back against authoritarianism, I think, of any kind, is to organize around what binds us as people, what binds us as humans, because that, when harnessed strategically in an organized manner, can be very powerful. That's why we don't need years of lead. That favors the establishment. Right? Violence and chaos favors the establishment, favors the oligarchs, because they are going to win that fight, and then they're going to build society in their image after that fight. This is the stuff that works.
What they want.
No one got dragged into prison. No one got killed. No one got hurt. Workers came together and said, look, we'll cripple you. Right? So what happened? They put a tail on that flotilla, and Italy has not been one of the more pro-Palestine European countries. Right? They've been on the hostile side.
They chickened out on recognizing Palestine at the UN. They said they were gonna, and then they didn't.
Exactly. Spain has been based, which is great. But yeah, this shows that, you know, you can influence a government that is even hostile to your aims if you know how to leverage pressure in a strategic and organized fashion. And so that's a great story to highlight.
Yep.
All right. Let's see what we got here. We got 1,660 of you fine people in the YouTube chat. You'd be a lot finer if you smashed that like button a little bit. We're at 439 likes. Let's get that up to over 666, please, and thank you. Sasser78, so happy to catch y'all in the daytime. I emailed y'all about getting in contact with Jose Vega about running in my district. Need advice. Okay. In contact with Jose Vega. Well, you could find him. Sorry if I missed your email. But you can find him at votevega.nyc. There's contact forms there, so you can get in touch. And he's happy to give advice about that. That's what he wants. He wants people to follow in his footsteps. Zach Bird says, y'all read much by the late anarchist anthropologist David Graeber. His books Debt and Bullshit Jobs pair well with Giannis's techno-feudalism. Wrote books on pirates, democracy. Yeah, I haven't heard of that book. Direct Action, and he even debated Peter Thiel in 2014.
Oh, really?
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I would read that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that kind donation.
All right, remember that, Keaton.
Debt and Bullshit Jobs. All right, sounds good. Thank you for that kind donation, sir. Putz the Mouse says, as always, love you guys. Love you back, Putz the Mouse. Thanks very much. Boys, thanks for sending Jose Vega to cover F the UN. Thank you, Tavis Givens. Appreciate that. Yeah, one thing we didn't get to is Trump complaining about the escalator. He wants to arrest whoever broke the escalator. Yeah. Oh boy. This is on now. I just watched Superman on HBO. The fictional Israeli president's office looks like the inside of Epstein's house, and there's even a literal island with a connection to it. Yeah, I got to watch it now. I definitely have to watch it now.
It's on HBO now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would watch it again. Watch it again.
Cool. Alrighty. Let's move right on along here. All right, folks. So this is one that I was excited about. Tucker Carlson dropped the first episode to the public on his new documentary series, The 9/11 Files. All 5 episodes are available for paid subscribers to his website, which I am not one of them. But they will be dropping every Tuesday for the next 4 weeks because this first one just dropped. So it's a 5-part series all in all. The 9/11 Files, the CIA's secret mission gone wrong. So what the first episode does is it essentially tracks as sort of interdepartment effort, quote unquote, to track and surveil, quote unquote, the 9/11 hijackers by allowing them into the country and keeping them here for well over a year. We'll get into a little bit more detail about that in just a minute. But, Tucker's been making the rounds here. Here he is on Glenn Greenwald's show, sort of setting up one of the key points of this docuseries.
The buildings were still burning. There were people in Washington discussing and pushing a war against Iraq, which I don't think any smart person ever believed had any connection to 9/11. There was a lot of reason to believe that having Saddam in power was probably good for the United States as a counterbalance against Iran, as the protector of millions of Christians. There are a lot of reasons that Saddam wasn't the worst, and certainly much better than what we got after. But nevertheless, at the behest of a foreign government, Israel, the United States began preparing for war against Iraq immediately after the attacks on 9/11. Now, I'm not saying I don't know more than that. So you can draw your own conclusions, and I'm not suggesting that they staged 9/11 for that purpose, but I am saying unequivocally they used...
Not yet. That'll be next year.
used 9/11 for that purpose. We know that. It's not a conspiracy theory. And it's appalling. It's disgusting.
And of course, as well as anybody,
it's what I believe.
Well before 9/11.
But I live in an isolated area, and I don't want to take any chances with these people.
Yeah.
9/11, there were all sorts of growing calls and the usual suspects within Washington to try and demand that we engage in regime change in Iraq and remove Saddam Hussein. That was, the sort of great aspiration of neocons, not just in Washington, but also in Israel.
That's
and then 9/11 immediately got seized on for that. All right, let me move to...
Now, this is a good part right here when Glenn is about to move on. He says Tucker gives his waspy Columbo thing. Just one more thing. Hold on.
All of the issues surrounding Charlie Kirk. And before I get to
may I just say one last thing?
Sure.
Got to call him the
one last thing that I think
Anglo-Columbo.
is important. So the question about 9/11, the reason people have debated it for 25 years is the question of foreknowledge. Do people know this was coming? And then it's a question of did they know it and allow it unintentionally or intentionally, or did they stage it? I can't answer those questions. But we conclusively answered the larger question, which is, oh yeah, there was foreknowledge of it. There's no question about it. CIA knew the hijackers were here. They knew they were terrorists, and they were here to commit acts of terror against the United States. And critically, and this is the fact that somehow blew my...
They literally, en route to America, went to an Al-Qaeda summit, which the CIA knew about. And they brought them here anyway, because their excuse was, we're going to track them. We're going to surveil them, right? Yeah.
Mind the most, people bet in the public financial markets, the equity markets, against the airlines involved in 9/11 and the banks in the buildings that were taken down on 9/11. And they bet big, they shorted them, and they made a lot of money. This has been sort of known. What I didn't know is that the U.S. government found the identities of the people who did that, and they withheld them. And to this day, they've never been revealed. So this is a publicly traded series of trades, and in public markets, and we can't know who made those trades. Whoever made those trades clearly knew 9/11 was coming, and the government has protected the identity of those people for 24 years.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Can't take the bullshit from this fucking government. Is lying to us.
Exactly. So what that is, folks, to me, is tantamount to it being an inside job. If you are actively covering up the identities of people who clearly, and what Tucker says is important, made public trades on public markets, who clearly had foreknowledge that this was going to happen, you are actively aiding and abetting a cover-up. That makes you an accessory to the crime. In law, you would be considered an accessory to that crime. If you have incriminating information on someone and you actively cover it up, then yes, you are culpable to a certain extent. So this is what a lot of people mean when they talk about inside job. People can't give an exact version of events that they can say with 100% certainty. This is what happened. But that's a cover-up. That is a cover-up in service of one of the most consequential crimes in American history. There's no other real way to put that, I think. Do you have anything to add before we go on?
No, go on.
Okay. All right. So then he gets to setting up this documentary on his press tour. He gets a little bit more into detail with Piers Morgan about the government's plan to bring the hijackers to the United States. Yes, that is correct.
At CIA who understands everything that's happening at CIA at any given time because it's compartmentalized. That's the nature of it. And so there were people at CIA, and I would say John Brennan clearly one of them, who understood that these terrorists, these hijackers, planned to commit violence against Americans in the United States, and they did nothing about it. Now, you can draw your own conclusions about that. In fact, they abetted it. They helped the hijackers get here. Fact. And so you can argue about why, but the truth is it's incumbent on them to tell us why. We had a fake investigation. George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Philip Zelikow participated in hiding the truth from the public. Again, I voted for them. I'm not.
I voted for them because blowjobs are yucky. That's why I voted for them.
Not a partisan point. That is a fact. We know it now. And why isn't there a 9/11, an actual 9/11 commission dedicated to finding out what happened? And the truth is, not only is there not, but even right now, as we speak, the CIA is effectively refusing to release information that they have from 24 years ago. And why? What is the answer? I don't know, but they should be forced at gunpoint to divulge this.
Gunpoint.
Damn,
careful
man.
there,
Leftist says that right now.
Yeah.
Getting a visit from the FBI.
If a left-wing person said that now, that would be no good. I gotta be a little careful there. I know you're excited,
That'd be
Tucker.
bad.
Yeah, we don't want nothing bad happening to you, man.
Look, with Tucker, man, it's a mixed bag. Like, at the end of the day, conservative gonna conservative. We pointed out he went up. Was that at Turning Points? That was part of his speech talking about economic
right.
deprivations of the working class. When the rubber meets the road, you got the big, beautiful bill pending. He didn't say shit. He didn't say fuck about shit as far as that goes. However, you have to give him some respect for the journey he's gone on. If you had told me, a decade ago that the guy with the bow tie who used to do the wrestling show with Paul Begala would end up having these kind of radical takes and be using his platform to put them out there. There's no, look, you could always go down the rabbit hole. Well, you see, what's really happening here is he's actually working for the deep state. I don't fucking think so, man. Like, I don't see any advantage there to him saying that. To a man like Tucker Carlson with his visibility putting out there, yeah, man, you have 24 people who shorted stocks. They know who they are, and they won't tell you. Why? For what reason would they want him out there saying that?
Well, it gets even more severe, and these will be clipped separately for those who are watching the clip versions. But he does get into the dancing Israelis and the Israeli foreknowledge of it. That'll be in the next segment.
And you know they don't want him talking about that. So credit where credit's due, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other high-profile journalist who would do a series like this. Just like there's no other high-profile journalist who would go interview Putin. Like, he does things that really no one else in his position would do. So you got to give it up a little bit for that. Actually, I would say more than a little bit. In fact, yes, I will
shit
correct
can be,
myself.
as we know, these things can be very unhealthy.
Yeah, this is not great for your health. So MJ Truth Ultra clips a little bit of this. So this is from episode 1. We're going to get into a little bit of what he was talking about in the Piers Morgan clip there that we just saw about, how these hijackers ended up inside the United States with the help of American intelligence.
The CIA tried to So how exactly did the CIA try to recruit the 9/11 hijackers? Well, one amazing thing about their arrival is that they didn't try to hide. The hijackers used their real names while in the United States. They operated in plain daylight. Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar lived in San Diego for more than a year before the attacks. They lived openly. In fact, they were so open that Hazmi's name, address, and a home phone number were listed in the San Diego phone book.
They were so open,
when they arrived,
the
the
Big
hijackers
Kahuna surfing championship.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
book.
What's with the surfing?
When they arrived, the hijackers encountered a Saudi intel operative called Omar al-Bayoumi. They met at a restaurant outside of Los Angeles.
The CIA utilized the Saudis in the form of Omar al-Bayoumi to spy for them and to gather intelligence.
So that is former FBI agent Mark Rossini. who was one of only 2 FBI liaisons to a special CIA project called the Bin Laden Issue Station, also known as Alex Station. He was one of only 2 FBI agents to know of this CIA plan to track Bin Laden. And then when he got wind of the fact that these hijackers are being allowed in, he wanted to alert the FBI, and his CIA contact, the guy named Michael Ann Casey, said, no, this is a CIA matter, with the excuse that the CIA plays zone defense and the FBI plays man-to-man. In other words, the CIA is saying, we're watching them. We don't need feds showing up at their door or something. So you are forbidden by law from telling the FBI about the fact that they're coming. So that's who that guy is.
Before 9/11, the CIA was forbidden from engaging in domestic spying. They used the Saudi intelligence as a workaround.
We'll rely upon the Saudi GID, General Intelligence Directorate, their version of the CIA, via Prince Bandar, via their man, Omar al-Bayoumi, to keep us informed as to the activity of these terrorists.
Bandar Bush.
Bayoumi's notebook, which was uncovered when British law enforcement raided his home in the UK, contained a drawing of an airplane and mathematical calculations related to flying it. The 9/11 Commission investigators never saw this.
Now, what the fuck? Now, come on. The 9/11 Commission investigators never saw that. One of the hijackers' drawings doing mathematical equations with airplanes.
At the time, al-Bayoumi had a no-show job at a Saudi aviation contractor called Avco. The company's employees say he was one of roughly 50 ghost employees working there at the time, taking the paycheck but never coming to work. According to declassified government documents, an investigator from the 9/11 Commission said al-Bayoumi was receiving substantial sums of money from the Saudi embassy in Washington prior to the 9/11 attacks, that the money was being funneled from accounts at Riggs Bank in Georgetown belonging to Haifa bin Faisal, the wife of the Saudi ambassador to the United States. By using the Saudis as a proxy to recruit the 9/11 hijackers, the CIA gave itself cover. If things went wrong, they could push a narrative that blamed the Saudi government for the attacks, which is what they did.
For all intents and purposes, Omar al-Bayoumi was an employee of the Saudi Arabian embassy in Washington, D.C., in their consulate in Los Angeles, California.
Al-Bayoumi convinced the hijackers to move to San Diego. He helped them find an apartment. He served as a co-signer on the lease to that apartment. He paid their first month's rent and deposit. He got them bank accounts. He got them driver's license. He introduced them to many other radical Muslims in the area, including the cleric Anwar al-Awlaki. Eventually, al-Midhar went home to Yemen.
Khalid al-Midhar leaves America for his daughter's birth, right? And in that time, he loses his passport. He claims he went to Afghanistan. He goes back to Jeddah and gets another passport. And by this time, even prior, as I understand it now, the Saudis had identified the terrorists, the hijackers, as potential threats to the kingdom and had put chips in their passports identifying them as a threat. Al-Midhar comes back to the United States, I believe it was on July 4th, 2001. He's allowed back in, not stopped, not questioned. So here's a guy that the CIA knew came to America, had been at a terrorist summit meeting in Malaysia in January 2000. He's allowed to leave and come back.
Midhar was able to exit and enter the country at will because he was issued a multi-visit U.S. visa. According to a summary of an interview with an FBI agent from Alex Station, quote, Al-Hamzi and al-Midhar obtained their visas to enter the United States at the American consulate in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. All told, the vast majority of the 19 9/11 hijackers had their visas issued at that consulate in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. At the time, John Brennan was running the CIA station there.
See, I told you he's a very bad guy. He's a very sick guy, that John Brennan. You can't trust that John Brennan character. He's no good. Not good. Believe me. Not good. So, yeah, so that's what episode 1 mostly focuses on, is how these hijackers were able to get to the United States with the help of our intel, Saudi intel. It was well done. You know, we were talking to our friend RB, who said it was a limited hangout. It's a little slow, the first episode, but you know, for a lot of people who don't know the basics, you kind of have to flesh it out. Like you have to kind of lay the groundwork. You kind of got to walk through that a bit. But yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely really kind of important that something like this comes out, because even what you see there, what is exposed instantly is the fraudulence of the 9/11 investigation. Don't forget, George Bush originally tapped Henry Kissinger to write the 9/11 Commission report, right? And then they had to get rid of him. Even Hitchens, who was a major neocon in his final days, said to ask Henry Kissinger to do anything is to ask for a cover-up. I mean, you're basically asking for a cover-up if you do that. So, yeah, I mean, the first episode, like I said, walks through that. It's about 22 minutes. That's up. That's free to watch on YouTube now, so I encourage people to do it. And, yeah, you know, it's good that this is coming out. I think it was supposed to debut on 9/11, but that was the day after the Charlie Kirk murder. So Tucker, I think, tastefully decided to put it off a couple weeks.
Yeah, fair enough.
But now it is starting, so that's good to see.
Yeah, you were a tour guide as I was, and you know, you look at all this stuff and you think about the bullshit that's in the 9/11 museum. There's a whole section that deals with the timeline, and it's all basically the commission report thesis. Right. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
They hate us for our freedom.
At worst, they fumbled the ball. The idea of you look back now, it's so obvious. You know, the Bush family was doing everything they could to deflect blame from the kingdom. Bandar Bush there, as the Bush family used to call him. He was so wrapped up with the Bushes. The fact that the bin Laden family was such a prominent family in Saudi Arabia and that he had been a CIA asset formerly. There was just so much about the story that did not add up. The dancing Israelis, like that you couldn't touch back then. It was known, it was out there, man, but you couldn't talk about it. Yeah, you know, many people say we have not really had a government, a democratic government in any sense of that word, since Kennedy.
Yeah,
that was the moment. That was the moment that the deep state said you can go this far and no further. You cannot get into our shit. You get into our shit, it's going to end very badly for you. Now, if you take that as true, well, you know, 9/11 is almost 40 years after that, and the deep state has total control of the government at that point, and they're able to orchestrate an operation like this and cover it up. And they have enough control over the media to keep the media compliant and not asking any questions. There is absolutely, to my mind, in my opinion, there's no way Watergate would be broken today. You wouldn't have the reporters who would pursue it, and you don't have any publishers who would be willing to back their pursuit.
Yeah, and we got a chilling example of history repeating itself at the UN this week with Petraeus having a sit down with the Al Qaeda guy in Syria. I mean, you look at the timeline. In the 70s, we backed bin Laden against the Soviets. 20 some odd years later, bin Laden attacks the United States, right? 20 some odd years later after that, here we are, right? Backing Al Qaeda in Syria because they're worse than the alternative. I mean, they're better than the alternative, right? And then what's going to happen 20 some odd years from now?
Well, this is why I'm going to write an essay. I feel that Wicked is actually the most subversive musical of our times. You know, the Wicked Witch is the good guy, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Turns out bin Laden is basically a Revo. You know,
yeah. According to the government, not according to us.
He's trying to expose the wizard.
Yeah, right.
The fraud that he is.
Exactly. All right, let's move right on along here. All right, folks. So we're talking about Tucker Carlson's new 9/11 Files docuseries, and so we're going to get now into a piece of this that's been circulating on Twitter. So this is from one of the episodes that is yet to come out to the public, but it's public enough. It's viral on Twitter, so I guess we could play it. MJ Truth Ultra. Oh, snap. Tucker Carlson went there. Yes. So here is a piece of the docuseries about the Israelis on 9/11 who were celebrating, and it goes beyond that to probe the question of Israeli foreknowledge of the attack. Let's take a look at this.
A number of foreign governments may have had foreknowledge of 9/11, but the Israeli government stands out in particular. And here's why. On the morning of 9/11, a group of 5 Israeli nationals purported to have witnessed the initial explosion of the World Trade Center and were seen to be celebrating the event. At the time, the celebrations received quite a bit of mainstream media coverage.
Fox News has learned some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S., who may have known things they didn't tell us before September 11th.
It's striking to see operatives from a supposedly allied country celebrating the mass murder of Americans. But it is true that some in Israel saw the attack as a good thing for them. A September 12, 2001 article in the New York Times quotes now Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responding to the 9/11 attacks. Quote, "It is very good," before adding, well, not very good, but it will generate immediate sympathy.
It's very good. I mean, not good, but good for us.
This is, and they tell you these motherfuckers wave the American flag and give this guy the most standing ovations in the history of Congress, the guy who said that. And then they're going to come to you and try to manipulate your patriotism to tell you what you should be angry about. That's all to keep you from getting angry at them. If their own base got their head out of their asses for 5 seconds and really practiced what they preached, none of these people would have a job. They'd all be in prison.
Yep.
Netanyahu predicted that the attack would strengthen the bond between our two peoples because we've experienced terror over so many decades, but the United States has now experienced a massive hemorrhaging of terror. According to FBI documents, the Israelis caught celebrating the 9/11 attacks had videotaped the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and may have possessed foreknowledge of the same. When the Israelis were arrested in New Jersey, they were carrying box cutters, multiple passports, thousands of dollars in cash, and photos of themselves smiling with the World Trade Center burning in the background.
Yeah, no, that's not weird.
The Israelis are always for the Israelis first, last, always. They don't like the United States, except for the most part, our money. And yet, our National Security Agency is producing information for them, but not shareable with its own people. Go figure.
See, now that's an intel guy. It doesn't say his name on the screen, and I haven't watched this full episode yet, so I'm not sure what that guy's name is. But he comes up later in this clip as well. But yeah, you heard it right from his mouth.
According to FBI records, polygraph tests administered by the FBI suggested that they did not have foreknowledge of the attacks, but did engage in deception and were likely involved in illegal foreign counterintelligence. They were spying in the United States. The leader of the group, a man called Dominic Suter, fled to Israel on or around September 14th, 2001, immediately, and he was later included on an FBI anti-terror watch list distributed to European allies in May of 2002. Most of the Israelis were held in FBI detention for 2.5 months before they were deported for visa violations, a common way to expel foreign intel assets from allied countries.
The Israelis pride themselves on having infiltrated every Arab intelligence service, every terrorist group. Did the Israelis know about 9/11 and not tell us?
One memorandum submitted to the 9/11 Commission presented substantial...
That guy's voice, I don't know that he's involved, so I don't want to say this, but that sounds like John Kiriaku's voice, doesn't it? That sounds just like him, so maybe that's him. He doesn't appear in this clip. I'm not saying it is, but maybe.
Actual evidence suggesting that numerous art students from Israel, who were in fact Israeli intel assets, have been strategically located across the United States. It's hard not to notice that they lived near the future 9/11 hijackers.
There were groups of Israelis traveling around the country as artists, sketching things. Happened to be one time around Cape Canaveral, I remember, and other places where there were certainly things to paint and sketch, but also noticeably near military installations or some other kind of installation in the government. So I think that's an open question yet.
The so-called Israeli art...
So you have roving Israeli art students who happen to be set up right near where these hijackers are. Back this up a minute.
Now, to be fair, it was cubism, which nobody really understands. It was very deconstructed versions of the Pentagon. It looked more like crumpled up origami and gum.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Noticeably near military installations or some other kind of installation in the government. So I think that's an open question yet.
The so-called Israeli art students centered their operations in Hollywood, Florida, and northern New Jersey. Those are the exact locations of the hijackers before the attack. According to the memorandum, quote, "It is very difficult to believe, based on the existing evidence and the location of their common central operating bases, that this group was not tracking the future hijackers and their collaborators as well." According to The Forward, a Jewish publication, quote, "The Israeli government acknowledged the operation and apologized for not coordinating it with Washington."
Oh, sorry.
Within a week of the attack, Israeli intelligence officials claimed they warned the United States about large-scale terror attacks on highly visible targets in the United States. But the specifics of those warnings have never been made public. There's no evidence they happened.
In fact, in the whole time I worked in counterterrorism from 92 till 2004, I never saw one piece of information from the Israelis that was really worth anything.
Wow. That's pretty eerie stuff, huh? Bet a lot of you didn't know that. I didn't even know about the art students. That was something I had never heard. I heard about the dancing Israelis. I heard, yeah, but the thing that they had this like roving troop of Israeli art students who just happened to be at or around where these hijackers were. Yeah, that's pretty chilling. And I want to play one more exhibit very quickly. There was a brief clip of this piece in that video that we just watched.
You must master pointillism. It is part of your cover story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was a brief piece of this video that was shown as part of the documentary what we saw. This actually aired in December of 2001. It was a fairly extended segment that Fox News did. And it was pulled off the air and scrubbed from the internet, so now you could see it as reproduced, sort of like archival footage. So, you could watch the 20-minute version of this. This was caught by, I'll give him a shout-out here for finding this, If Americans Knew. This entire segment is available on X now. It's circulating around different places. But I will play just a moment of this because he gets into a little more detail. You can get a sense of what was on Fox News in December of 2001.
It has been more than 16 years since a civilian working for the Navy was charged with passing secrets to Israel. Jonathan Pollard pled guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage and is serving a life sentence. At first, Israeli leaders claimed Pollard was part of a rogue operation, but later took responsibility for his work. Now, Fox News has learned some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S., who may have known things they didn't tell us before September 11th. Fox News correspondent Carl Cameron has details in the first of a four-part series.
Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States. There is no indication that the Israelis were involved in the 9/11 attacks, but investigators suspect that the Israelis may have gathered intelligence about the attacks in advance and not shared it. A highly placed investigator said there are, quote, tie-ins, but when asked for details, he flatly refused to describe them, saying, quote, evidence linking these Israelis to 9/11 is classified. I cannot tell you about evidence that has been gathered. It's classified information.
Yeah, so once again, pretty chilling stuff. Now, look, you could say, and I think pretty fairly, that this whole talk of Israeli foreknowledge, while it's true, there's a bit of a limited hangout quality to that, too, in the sense that all of this is to say we knew. Like, we knew. I think we clearly knew. And how many times have we shown the Wesley Clark video on this channel about learning just after 9/11 of plans to invade 7 countries? I could go. I mean, if you want to go deep into this, I will cover this more as more comes out about the series. But Project for a New American Century in the 90s said we want to attack Iraq. It's going to be difficult to muster support for that absent a new Pearl Harbor. Well, they take power. 9 months in, boom, new Pearl Harbor. So, yeah, did the Israelis know? Yeah, of course they knew. Obviously, they said we apologize that we didn't let you know about that sooner. Oops. Yeah, that would have been nice to know. Maybe in advance.
Well, and it does, if you look at the fact pattern, we just for movie night, and if you are not a patron, you should join so you can hang out with us when we do cool stuff like watch 3 Days of the Condor, as we did the other night, kind of the original deep state conspiracy movie. And if you really look at the fact pattern, they weren't really far off. Like the idea that you've got a CIA and then you've got the real CIA. So why do you get a presidential daily brief, bin Laden determined to strike inside the U.S., as Condoleezza Rice got famously grilled about in front of Congress? Because there's probably a part of the CIA that's not in on it, that's not really aware of what the other part is actually doing.
Well, that's
of what the
Tucker said
real
too, yeah.
CIA is actually doing. So yeah, you're going to get honest agents who are like, yeah, we better send this up to the president, but in the end, they're not in control. They need people like that in order for plausible deniability. But I think it's always a mistake to assume that these people are stupid and incompetent. I think they want you to think that. They love for the public to believe that MK Ultra was a failure, which according to Tom O'Neill and Chaos, it actually was not. That they actually succeeded with MK Ultra all the way back in the 50s and 60s. If that is true, what are they capable of now? But they put out the cover story like, yeah, no, we got to talk to Hollywood screenwriters because we have no imagination. We could never have thought of nothing like that.
Right.
That was what they did at the time. They had a big sit down with Hollywood screenwriters to brainstorm terrorist plots. Like real. It's very easy. You see, when you put out the cover story that you're stupid, people want to jump on it because it makes them feel smart. That's
right.
Part of what's so appealing about narratives like that. But I think assuming that these intelligence professionals who have been running illegal medical experiments on people, I mean, that's an established fact, don't know what they're doing and have been doing things like that for decades, started doing things like that during World War II. And after all these decades, they're just, we don't know what's... Obviously not. That's part of the psyop. Part of the cover story is, yeah, these guys are dumb and they don't know what they're doing.
Yes. And, what Tucker said in the first clip that we showed, there's the kernel of truth there, which is that it's impossible for everyone in the CIA to know what everyone else is doing. So, yeah, you have these people who give plausible deniability for things. But, you see a segment like that about Israel, and there was a big question when, it came out that Tucker was doing this series. Is he going to go there? Well, you have your answer. And, our first segment about the flotilla, about Spain and Italy sending backup to the ships so that they are not hit by Israel. You talk about the dam breaking there. Well, this is an example of the dam breaking here.
Right.
This is just
only took 24 years.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, in terms of 9/11, but it only took 2 years of Israel doing an all-out genocide for this to come out. I don't think it's a coincidence this is coming out now.
No, I agree.
I think absent the genocide in Gaza, this probably wouldn't have come out right now. And so, because it just becomes not only too obvious to ignore, but too much for people to take. Don't forget, you're talking about a nationalist movement that this administration wrote in on. The base is a nationalist base. They don't like being ordered around by another country, much less being sabotaged by this foreign country who we are beholden to, who it seems, according to Tucker Carlson now, I mean, this has been kind of mainstream sentiment on the left for a while, but now, according to even Tucker, you heard him say in the previous segment, we invaded Iraq on behalf of Israel, right?
Right.
Once that becomes mainstream, the dam is really broken, I think.
Yep.
All right. Let's see here. Hi, lads. All the best from Glasgow, Scotland. Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. Skyzar says, help me out. Western countries will now send warships to protect their activist flotillas, but not to protect the Palestinians. Well, that's the thing. I mean, people are calling for, a lot of people, and I think they're right, calling for military intervention to end the genocide. Yeah. And of course, look, obviously, look, this is when we talked to Gabor Mate, that was something, maybe it's because he does that for a living. He puts people at ease for a living. But he says, look, you have to be honest and understand that none of what we've done has saved the finger on a single Palestinian child, right? But that doesn't mean you don't do anything, right?
Well, I think it's also an example. I mean, this is what it means to use your privilege, right? These are Europeans. It shouldn't be that way, but their lives are more valued.
Right.
So putting their lives at risk mobilized these nations and their militaries in ways that they won't mobilize for people who are not white, frankly.
Yes. Yep. Don Devine, thanks for the super sticker. Sasser78 says, thank you, Keaton. Love y'all's work. Free Palestine. Thank you, Sasser. Appreciate that very much. What do we got over here? Hillary Hinton says, hey, dirtbags, I got moved to a different department of my soul-crushing job, so I probably won't be ranting as much here on weekdays. I'll still be hot and heavy on Russ's OnlyFans. All right, well, thank you, Hillary Hinton. Good luck at your new department. T-Bone says, here is some money for diapers and coffee. You two are aces. By the way, update on the flotillas. I'll beat you to it today. Love you guys and Jake. Thank you, T-Bone. Appreciate that very much. Oh, George, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Oh, George. Says, hey, dudes, Mint Press reports that Spain is joining Italy's Navy to protect the flotilla. If they stand tall, well, holy super crap. Shit is getting serious. Making words mean something. That's right, Oh, George. Thank you very much for that donation. And thanks again for those membership gifts. Appreciate that. It's Vito. If Carsey ever comes to St. Louis, I'm not sure why she would, I will go to see her. Cancer sucks, you guys rock. They got some venues in St. Louis, I'm sure.
They do.
Play.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not, like I don't see why she wouldn't if she got booked over there.
Yeah.
I mean, she's played some small towns in upstate New York, like September, I think.
Oh, yeah? Do you remember which ones?
Remember I mentioned it to you because she wasn't that far from you, but it was too far for you to get to. I mean, with you,
it was like 20 minutes away. Yeah,
it was 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
I think it was like 100. She was outside Albany, I think, man. I think so.
Oh well, I would have. I mean, that's not.
I definitely mentioned
Albany has a bunch of venues.
You were like, you weren't gonna go.
Yeah, I angrily dismissed it. Max Blumenthal was on Jimmy Dore's show over 2 years ago. The pilots were trained by CIA and Saudi intelligence. Operation Encore, Alex Station. Yeah, we talked about Alex Station. Free Palestine. Thank you, Michael Castillo. Appreciate that very much.
He's in New York right now, that little jerk. He didn't call me. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Going to take him out for pastrami.
That's right. You're going to go get a
pastrami.
Yeah. All right, let's move right on along here. What we got next? Oh yeah, Ukraine.
All right, so let's catch up. Remember this guy?
You got to settle. I would tell Zelensky, you got to settle. I would tell one, you're going to load up with money. I'd tell the other, you're not going to get any money. I would get a settlement in 24 hours.
I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours. I know Zelensky well.
Gonna give one side a lot of money.
I would get that ended in a period of 24.
You can break that deal.
100%. It would be easy.
100%.
That deal would be easy.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, 100%. I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It will be settled quickly. 24 hours.
How are you going to do that?
I get Putin and I get Zelensky together. I know them both very well. Before I arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after I win the presidency, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It'll take 24 hours. You're going to load up with money. I tell the other, you're not going to get any money.
It was worse than that time I ate a burrito from a roadside taco stand.
Yeah, that's a long 24 hours.
It's a very long 24 hours. And you might remember, he was everyone, including ourselves, really marveled at this after years of this guy showing up in tracksuits and getting standing ovations in Congress. What a dress down he got in the Oval Office.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. You've allowed yourself to be in a
Apparently he was.
position, and he happens to be right about
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now.
You don't have the
With us,
cards.
you start having cards.
Apparently you did.
Right now, you don't. You're playing cards.
You had something.
You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
Apparently not.
Said a lot of
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong.
The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. You're either going to make a deal or we're out.
And a lot of people, again, ourselves included, we covered that. We said, all right. Well, maybe that one empty chamber in the gun is actually the one that's going to fire here. That was our equation with Trump. Like, yeah, who knows? With Harris, they're going to go all the way with Ukraine. Who knows? Maybe Trump will pull out. Here's Trump in August. This was about 6 weeks ago. He was talking about how Ukraine was going to have to give up some kind of land for peace.
Territory that's been fought over for 3.5 years with, a lot of Russians have died, a lot of Ukrainians have died. So we're looking at that, but we're actually looking to get some back and some swapping. It's complicated. It's actually nothing easy. It's very complicated, but we're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both. And but we'll be talking about that either later or tomorrow or whatever. Yeah, please. Say it.
Ukrainians will not give their lands to the occupier. Ukraine is ready for real solutions that can bring peace. Any solutions that are against us, any solutions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time solutions against peace. They will not bring anything. These are dead solutions. They will never work.
Well, obviously, so far.
Well, Trump just dropped this the other day. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO. I thought we went out of NATO. What happened? The original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly, if by taking 20% of Ukrainian territory is aimlessly, I suppose, for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed, and all of the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better, Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that.
Oh, yeah.
Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all. Yeah, he got what they call the JFK call. He got that JFK call. Whistling a very different tune. Is this still what you voted for? You know, we have some audio of some of the Trump voters here.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
It sure is. It sure is, pal. Hold on. Wasn't it like 4 weeks ago that Trump said Ukraine would have to cede territory? Guy is a walking psyop. Yeah, so here he is with Macron.
It's been a terrible war. It should have ended, and Russia should have stopped it. But they've been 3.5 years, and they've gotten not so far. So we'll see what happens. But the other side can fight too, and they've proven that. Maybe it could be that Russia's a paper tiger. I don't know what they are, but 3.5 years of fighting and killing everybody, of killing 7,000 people a week for nothing. So it's a very sad situation, but most of you have seen the recent statement I put out a little while ago, and I'm glad you got it. But I feel that way. I really do feel that way. Let them get their land back. Yep. So we'll see how it all works out. And in the meantime, I hear France is doing well, and you're doing well.
Yeah, how you doing over there?
And you've been my friend.
In the meantime, how's things with you? Still eating that cheese?
How you doing? Just let's settle this. Does your wife have a schlong? Does she have a schlong? I've been watching Candace. She says your wife has a schlong. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I had a schlong contestant in my beauty pageant. It's fine. It's fine with me. I don't care. I don't judge.
How's it going? You guys still drinking the wine over there? You still like the wine and the chocolate and the cheese?
So God, I love the bread.
The bread. I like the crusty
it's
bread.
So good, the bread.
Yeah.
Anonymous. Whatever Ukraine has on Trump, good work. Yeah. They Epsteined him. Nick, I told people for years that Donald Trump wouldn't end the Ukraine war, but instead escalated and tried to sell the war to MAGA. All the libertarians who sold Donald Trump as anti-war, like Dave Smith and Ian Carroll, should never be taken seriously ever again. Yeah, man. Yeah, that whole Rescue the Republic event. And for that matter, the Madison Square Garden event. Tulsi goes up there, same one who called Trump Saudi Arabia's bitch, goes up there, sells him as the peace candidate. Well, you know, the two Nicks are in agreement on this particular point. Nicholas Fuentes. In just the last week, Trump called to reinvade Afghanistan, vowed to help Ukraine defeat Russia, and is currently pushing for regime change in Venezuela. And it's only a matter of time before Israel drags us to war against Iran again. What happened to no new wars? Yes, what happened to it?
That's true. You know things are going to shit really fast when you forget that he threatened to reinvade Afghanistan. Like I saw that, but I forgot about that entirely.
Right. The shit's piling up too fast to shovel it out. But according to Trump, he's actually none of that's true. Nick's got it wrong, man. He's ending all the wars, and some very smart people believe he deserves the Nobel Prize.
Action. Now, after ending all of these wars and also earlier negotiating the Abraham Accords, which is a very big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements. But for me, the real prize will be the sons and daughters who live to grow up with the mothers and fathers, because millions of people are no longer being killed in endless and unglorious wars.
So he completely reversed himself on Ukraine and encourages NATO to continue arming them. J.D. Vance months ago pointed out the hard time they're having getting enough recruits for their military. We did a story on this a while ago. The average recruit was up around 50.
Right.
You got a bunch of middle-aged men on the front line. Arming Israel's final solution, Trump Gaza, whatever the fuck he has in mind. But he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, according to Trump. It's all politics. It's all politics. They gave Obama one. Why don't they give me one? Which Obama didn't deserve one either. Don't get me wrong. But maybe the unkindest cut of all. And you want to see how dishonest the fucking podcast grifting conservative space is. They're all clipping this interview with Hillary Clinton where she said things about how the two people shouldn't point fingers at each other and attack Trump and attack MAGA. For some reason, they didn't clip this part of the interview where she praises Donald Trump's new posture.
I have to say, Joe, I welcomed what the president said yesterday. I thought that given all the back and forth that we have seen and heard at Anchorage and elsewhere, his coming to grips with the fact that Vladimir Putin does not respond to any kind of rhetoric. He only responds to strength. And you have to show strength, you have to back strength, you have to be strong in order to deal with him. And he poses a clear and present danger to all of Europe and therefore to the United States. And I think if what President Trump said yesterday is, if we help Ukraine can hold the line and may even be able to push Russia back. And there was a very interesting comment that Trump made in his Truth Social post. He said, what kind of military does Russia have?
Exactly.
They couldn't even take over Ukraine. This has been a point I've been trying to make now for a long time.
Oh, well.
We overestimated Russia's military strength.
Can I ask you a question?
And now we're seeing that they can be pushed back.
Came, we saw, he died.
Yeah,
that's it. I bet when you voted for Donald Trump, you didn't realize you were getting Hillary Clinton's foreign policy.
Yeah, right.
Right? Nobody, is that what you voted for? You
That's
voted
amazing.
for Hillary Clinton's foreign policy? Yeah.
We've been trying
Trump,
to say this for years.
Yeah, no, she loves it. She loves it. Hey, we have always said this about Trump. Their real issue with him is that he rocks the boat in certain ways. He doesn't just put his head down and go along. He says a lot of times he'll say the soft part out loud on camera, like, yeah, we need the oil. We're going for the oil. Like, you're not supposed to say that part. You're supposed to say we're fighting for their freedom and that kind of shit. Even now, I promise you, even now, if Trump turns around and adopts all the deep state talking points and all the deep state politics and postures, I promise you the media will start treating him as an honored guest. All of it. You'll have Jimmy Kimmel up there praising Trump to high heaven for seeing the light and fighting for freedom. Even now.
Well, sure. I mean, look, to a large extent, they already kind of have. Like, if you take a step back, like it's tough to, because the news is so fast and things are so dire now. But if you take a step back, compare the media coverage he got in the first term to this term, he's getting much better coverage this term than he got from 2017 through 2020. A lot of that's because of Russiagate, right? Like that was just fueling this constant pile on. But I'm not seeing anywhere near the hostility from the media to Trump this time, and I think Israel has a lot to do with that. I think that's why you saw a lot of, these liberal Hollywood actors not really back Kamala to the extent they backed Biden or to the extent they backed Hillary Clinton, because there's this Israel question. And if Trump is good on Israel in their mind, then that's good enough for them, right? They may prefer Kamala Harris, but they're not going to have their hair on fire as long as he's towing the line on these big issues like this. And so, I don't sense like this tremendous hostility from the media this time to him. I'm not saying like they're not against him in general in their orientation. Like, CNN is still oppositional. MSNBC is obviously oppositional, but even the Morning Joe people, right? They went and they met him. Right. They kissed the ring at Mar-a-Lago. When he sent the feds into D.C., they're like, I think we should welcome him and kind of work with him. I think Chicago should try and work. Like, you're not seeing the level of just hysteria that you saw last time, which is kind of ironic since I think this term is going much, much worse than the first term, but not in their eyes. Not in their eyes, because he's executing the foreign policy.
Yeah, well, also remember, all of these people in the end are toadies to power. And this is why with a normal president, which even though his foreign policy is increasingly becoming normal by the horrific terms of the empire, George Bush, they treated him with great respect, even though it was apparent from the beginning that his brother rigged the election for him in Florida. Whether you believe that's through actual ballots or just by throwing thousands of black men off the voter rolls who had the right to vote.
I believe it was both.
He lowered the standard for taking people off the voter rolls. Why did he do that? So it was rigged any way you slice it. As soon as the Supreme Court basically appointed George Bush president, the media shut the fuck up about it right away. Right away. I remember it was shocking. It was shocking how quickly they just went to Mr. President and started writing puff pieces about his banker hours and the way he runs his Oval Office. With Trump, in the end, the first time they felt like this is an aberration and they're still sucking up to power by opposing him, and our people are going to get back in and it'll all be good. Now he won a second time, and it's very clear that the Democratic Party is broken. And even if it regains power, it's going to be in a very different form that is going to be a kind of Trump light, just like it wound up being Reagan light and Bush light, what you'll get, even if the Democrats come back in, because they're funded by the same people. And those people like a lot of what Trump's doing. Wait, you think the Democrats are going to come in and give you back everything Trump took away? No, they're going to tell you they're trying.
They're trying.
They'll have their Kristen Sinema or their Joe Manchin to blame.
Right.
On the fact that they can't give you a repeal of Trump's policies. They don't want to be out in the cold, man. They don't want to be out in the cold. So they're kissing his ass. And, they can no longer feel that the power base is going to hold that they used to rely on for their careers.
Right. And I think that is a big factor as well, for sure. All right, Tommy D, is there some kind of CIA civil war to try and wrestle control of the country out from under Israeli control? Tucker is too connected to be doing this on his own. Interesting question. Never know. Saw Bree and DD yesterday. The Gaza movement encapsulates constitutional issues and involves the whole international community. The right is being swayed against Israel, too. She's not seeing this. I forget if we talked much about that. Maybe we touched on that a bit. But, at the time, too, it was not really as evident just how at odds Charlie Kirk was behind the scenes with the Israelis. Watergate was broken as a coup against Nixon for thinking he was in charge. Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate that. Mark Pugliese says the number of years the state is devoted to this project and the things they've had the nerve to do show you they will not let us prevail now. Thank you, Mark Pugliese. Look at George with another $50 Rumble ring.
Damn, you're making it rain.
A lot of money today, George. Is it because we know you did 9/11? Is that why you're trying to get on our good side now?
He's trying to shut us up.
Yeah.
We're not for sale, man.
Yeah, right. George, for those who don't know, lives in Haifa. He's a resident, a rare breed, a based Israeli. That was definitely John Kay's voice. Peace. Yeah, that had to be Kiriaku's voice, right? Kiriaku was on Jimmy the other day. That was cool. He was in the studio. Apparently. He was out in L.A. Yeah, so I just heard his voice recently. So that's
I mean, he's on my list of people I want to bring on.
Yeah, he would be fun. That would be a great guest. CEB Applejack, what's up, Applejack? Says I don't care if conservatives are going too conservative. The point is to bring them to our side. Rich versus the rest of us. I salute that as a lefty. Thank you, Applejack. Crime is Stone, thank you for the $1.99 super sticker. Appreciate that. Applejack says, anyone who puts down Tucker and Candace assisting left-wing issues like Epstein and 9/11 are not serious about change in our lightweight psyops. Yeah, look, I think you obviously elevate them where they're correct. I think that's totally fair. The thing about Tucker that a little bit pisses me off is that he's not like a doctrinaire Reaganomics conservative in his rhetoric.
Right.
Like he does express concern for the excesses of laissez-faire capitalism. So if I know that you feel that way, then it is a little upsetting that you had nothing to say about the big, beautiful bill.
Exactly.
I wouldn't expect
if you're not going to back it up, what are you talking about? Like, why are you even talking about it if you're not going to actually act?
Right. Like if a traditional, just like libertarian-oriented conservative had nothing to say about that, but they were good on Israel, it wouldn't really stick in my craw that much.
Massey.
They just disagree on that. Yeah. Well, Massey voted against the bill for what else? Massey voted the bill because it wasn't
draconian enough.
Draconian enough. It didn't cut enough. Right. Exactly. But I don't really hold that against Massey because that's who he is. Like, that's his philosophy. I don't like it, but that's his philosophy. Tucker seems to have a critique of that.
Right.
Of this like merciless slashing of the social safety net, but at that time he chose not to say anything, which I thought was kind of upsetting. Crime of Stone, has anyone mentioned the documentary Codex 9/11? I have not heard of that nor seen it, so thank you for that.
No,
appreciate that. 12 Flags of Falsehood on the 5th. Yeah, 5 Dancing Jews. Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that, Brad Gilbert. All right, speaking of Dancing Jews, we're going to talk about South Park a little bit. All right, folks, so South Park is back. They took a few weeks off, and they came back, and people were really wondering what they were going to do because obviously they had Cartman playing a sort of version of Charlie Kirk on the show, so people were wondering how they were going to deal with that, and predictably, I think, they just decided to drop that story arc for good reason. But another question that people had about South Park is, were they going to tackle the Israel question? And the answer here is yes. So just to set up the episode, which I watched in its entirety this morning, it is another good one. Not their best of the season, I don't think, but a good one. The first scene, this kind of gender-neutral looking kid with a gender-neutral name comes in front of the class, introduces themselves, and the kids are all betting on the betting markets on their apps, whether it's a dude or a chick. And so as they're scrolling the betting markets, they see this come across: will Kyle's mom, Jewish lady, strike Gaza and destroy a Palestinian hospital? And at the time, only 5% said yes, she would. 95% said no, she wouldn't. Here is some audio. We got to do audio only because this is very strictly copyright protected. But here is that gag.
Mom destroyed Palestinian. Why the hell would my mom destroy a Palestinian hospital? 'Cause she's a Jew.
So that is Kyle asking, why are they asking this about my mother?
Why the hell would my mom destroy a Palestinian hospital? 'Cause she's a Jew.
Okay, so that's essentially the premise of the show. And then, you know, in very clever fashion, what the plot of the show becomes is the kids know that Kyle's mother is not actually going to attack a Palestinian hospital. But they realize that the more they antagonize Kyle, the more his mother protests, the more people think they may actually do it. So then the odds of her doing it go up, and the kids who know she's not going to do it will then get better odds on their bets the more it looks like Kyle's mom is actually going to strike a Palestinian hospital. So that's basically the plot. And they actually incorporate Brendan Carr and the FCC into this in a funny sort of parallel story, because the Jews are lobbying him to shut down that bet on the apps because those are regulated in that way. So that's essentially the plot of the story. Without giving too much away, at the end of the episode, and this is viral right now, Kyle's mother, the old Jewish woman, does actually go to Israel, which sends the odds of her attacking the hospital way, way up because people assume that she's there to do that, when it turns out she's actually there to chew out Netanyahu for making Jewish people's lives miserable by perpetrating a genocide in Gaza, is essentially the message of the show. So they come down against Israel at the end of the episode. So here is the audio of her confronting Netanyahu.
There you are, Mr. Netanyahu! Just who do you think you are? Killing thousands and flattening neighborhoods, then wrapping yourself in Judaism like it's some shield from criticism. You're making life for Jews miserable and life for American Jews impossible. Oh, don't you roll your eyes at me, mister. You know what you're doing, and you're doing it on purpose. Well, now you can just sit in that chair, because I'm not going anywhere, Buster. I've been to every PTA meeting, every school board meeting, and I can go all day.
So that's essentially the end of the episode and the moral of the story. So, it was well done. Like I said, it wasn't one of their best. It was, they could have gone a little harder, I think. But that was clearly the message, and the message was unmistakable enough for Haaretz. Making life for Jews miserable. New South Park episode takes aim at Netanyahu over Gaza war. Sorry. Kid's about to leave, so he's getting a little angry. So who really didn't like this was Betar. Betar Worldwide. These are the Zionists who go and put the pagers in the pockets of the protesters. Betar's statement on South Park's disgusting attack on Israel. Last night, South Park aired a segment ending with an American Jewish mother storming into the office of the Israeli prime minister, blaming him for flattening neighborhoods, killing thousands, and most outrageously, accusing him of making life for American Jews impossible. The scene ends with Hasidic music playing mockingly in the background, turning Jewish identity into a punchline. Let's be very clear. This isn't satire. This is defamation. This isn't comedy. This is cowardice. This isn't criticism of policy. Well, it literally is. This is delegitimization of the Jewish state. To imply,
I think you all did that to yourselves.
Yeah, and it's not delegitimization of the Jewish state. Like, it doesn't even litigate the right to exist as a one state, two state. None of that. Right. It's just very squarely like the mass murder is attracting like basically what we've been saying. Which
Stone is Jewish, isn't he?
I think so. I mean, it sounds like a Jewish. I'm not sure, but anyway, whether he is or isn't, the point is the point that we've been making, which is this shit promotes anti-Semitism. The Jewish state conducting itself in this way and insisting that it has not only the right to conduct itself this way, but the obligation to conduct itself this way as a Jewish state. That makes anti-Semitism worse. That's the point that they made. It was fairly narrow in scope. To imply that anti-Semitism is caused by Israel is a grotesque inversion of history and morality. Jews are not responsible for the hate directed at them. We never have been. That's a great way to go through life, is that, you're never to blame for your actions.
For your actions.
That's a great lesson to teach kids, is that, you know what, no matter what you do, you'll never be responsible for the hate directed at you. Blaming Israel for global anti-Semitism is the classic anti-Semitic blood libel in woke disguise. South Park cloaks its hatred behind the Jewish character, Sheila Broflovsky, a tired stereotype of the nagging, overbearing diaspora Jew, to give cover for their slander. It's not new. It's not edgy. It's not brave. It's just lazy anti-Semitism.
Yeah, listen. Every fucking woman in my family sounded exactly like Sheila Broflovsky. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. To those American Jewish liberals who push this narrative, you are not part of the solution. You are not the moral voice of the Jewish people. You are enemies of the state of Israel. There is no bigger enemy of the state of Israel than the diaspora Jewish liberal. Well, this is what we say all the time, that yes, they have special hatred for Jews who do not toe the party line. And they have a special, I would argue, they have contempt for people who sort of lean into the stereotype of the nagging, overbearing diaspora Jew, right? They hate the Larry David types and the Woody Allen types because they see them as sort of playing into a stereotype of Jews as weak and vulnerable. And the whole ethos of Israel is to, suppress all vulnerability. That's why they mythologize themselves as lions in the memes and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I have to just take issue. I mean, I take issue with all of this, but the thing that's especially revealing about Betar issuing a statement like this, as if South Park is anti-Semitic and how dare you criticize Israel? What vile anti-Semites? They say here in the beginning, you're turning Jewish identity into a punchline. I've been watching South Park for almost 30 years. Jewish identity has always been a punchline on South Park. Like, Cartman is the anti-Semite of the show. He taunts Kyle for being Jewish in almost every single episode. So if your issue is really protecting Jewish people, you think you'd have maybe objected to some of their Jew cracks over the past 30 years. But you didn't. We didn't hear a peep from these organizations until they went after Israel, which reveals that, no, you're not actually interested in protecting the Jewish identity from abuse or wisecrackery. You're interested in protecting Israel. Like, if you wanted to make the point that they were anti-Semitic, there are literally thousands of South Park jokes made at the expense of Jews that you could have highlighted if you want to make that point. One of them is on our soundboard here. This one. That's when they're building a ladder to heaven. They think they're going to get to heaven. The boys are building and building, and they keep going, and they keep going, and they're not getting into heaven. And Cartman says, it's not working because one of us is a J-O-O. Yeah. So, like, if that's your objection, you had, I mean, thousands of opportunities to raise that objection. I never heard a single Jewish group or Zionist group object to South Park's anti-Jewish humor, if you will. And I'm not offended by it. I'm a fan of the show. It's fine. That's one of the things I take pride in as a Jewish guy, is my ability to take a fucking joke because it's funny and who cares. But that just shows you how dishonest they are. Like, they've been using Jewish identity as a punchline forever. You didn't take issue with it until they insulted Israel.
Right. One of the things I did always like about South Park, even though it's in a very different setting from where I grew up, is the people I always found who were most intent on policing speech were people who came from chalk white areas who had no real experience of non-white people and the way people might interact who are not white. So their idea of social justice was extremely shallow. No, well, you can't say that. In reality, in a multi-ethnic place like New York, yeah, man, you all slur each other growing up, and then you go play football.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
it's the way that people actually interact. And if anything, if you were to bring those standards in, it makes everybody tense. Everybody tense because, there's things you can't say, and people are going to be offended. Nah, man, it's like you get all that shit out there.
Yeah.
And your friends, man.
Well, that's the way it was in my school. I
it's
mean,
not a
we
deal.
were, the school district I went to in Newburgh was a magnet school. So it was racially quoted to be a third black, a third brown, a third white. So we were all minorities in the school.
Right.
And we all ragged on each other. And nobody really cared.
That's it. The only people I've ever seen who didn't understand that are people who literally only grew up around white people.
Right, around white people.
So
right.
they just have no concept of that. Their idea of racial harmony is what they read in a book because they have no real meaningful experience of actual diversity. In terms of what, I haven't watched the episode, but I did see that clip before you played it. Yeah, that's exactly what we've been saying. I have never in my life, especially living in New York, felt like people have an instant distaste for Jews, Judaism, Jewishness. I've never felt that way. I do now because they just assume that you must be a Zionist. And if you're a Zionist, you're supporting a genocide. And they want desperately to confuse people about that distinction. I've seen of late, when this started, before they became so desperate, before they so clearly had lost control of the narrative, you had your more like liberal Zionists would admit the possibility that you could be Jewish and not support Israel. No, now they've really been pushing the talking point. You're kidding yourself. If you think you can be Jewish and not support Israel, they are desperate to avoid that distinction. I finished up Peter Churchin's book. I'm reading The Invention of the Jewish People. And yeah, man, I mean, the whole thing is a construct. I mean, the point the book really gets into is this concept of a unified Jewish people who are descended from common ancestors. This is really a late 19th century invention that came up in the midst of growing nationalism throughout Europe. So the Zionists conceived that way of selling this project. But before that, the idea that these Jews from all these different regions who spoke different languages, who had different customs, the idea that you're all descended from these Jews from 2,000 years ago, this really wasn't a thing. This is a Zionist invention.
Right.
And now they're taking it to the point that they're saying, well, you can't even be Jewish if you're not part of what, when it started, most Jews thought was a crackpot scheme. And they
Right.
thought that all the way until after the Holocaust.
Exactly. All right, folks, before we move on, I just want to tell you about The Grifter's Bible, which is a mind-bending novel by El Shabooms, and it's now a free weekly series on YouTube with a soundtrack by Monumental Sonic Architecture. Follow the First Electric Church of Jesus Christ as they combine the bleeding edge of black patented neuroscience with the state-of-the-art in Michigas to beat the Great Recession. They sell visions of God to the huddled masses of Deep Ellum, Texas, and the money pours in until the local competition, the police, and the U.S. Navy decide to put a stop to it. There's ass whoopings, car chases, and a showdown at high noon on Good Friday in Dodge City. It's sci-fi noir. It's a picaresque thriller. It's a Western from 10 minutes in the future. It's The Grifter's Bible. It's a film series by El Shabooms with a soundtrack by Monumental Sonic Architecture. A new episode is posted every Monday at this link, youtube.com/@El-Shaboom. So go and subscribe and catch a new episode every Monday as they come out. Okay. All right. We're going to move right on along here. We got some video to play from the good book event last night, and then we'll do the bad book event from last night.
Yes. So I was able to make my way over to this event. It was a promotion for this book, From the Flag to the Cross. If you can, you should definitely buy yourself a copy. All proceeds by agreement from the contributors. It's a series of essays about fascism in the American context. All proceeds go to Palestine Children's Relief Foundation. Some of the people who have contributed essays include Chris Hedges. At the event that I was at, Margaret Kimberly, Shama Sawant, Richard Wolf, who apparently goes by Rick, if you know him well enough. A.M. Gitlitz was the moderator. He's on WABI, I believe. And check out this publisher, Or Books. I actually was had dinner with Shama and Calvin, her husband, afterwards, and Colin Robinson, the owner of Or Books, was there. And really, this is a labor of love. Like, you don't start a radical press to get rich. And I told him, hey, it's really admirable what they've done, because I would say these Or book events have become maybe the most visible places in New York City for people on the left to congregate and engage in conversation. And I could see he was very touched by that, because that's what he's in it for, right? That's what he's doing it for. But it is very true. And what's so great about these events is it gets people away from this, man. It gets people away from this. That's the real shit. The drunk who started screaming at me about Chris Smalls aside, it's very nice to get into these rooms and actually meet people. If you are in the area, I cannot recommend highly enough. Check out their website. They have an events page, and they're always having very cool stuff, like what they did last night. This is a book he was actually talking to me about that sounds interesting. He says they might get sued for it, which is, to his light, evidence they did good work. According to this book, Fraud, that they've released, he claims, like, basically Starmer's rise was funded illegally, that there was hidden money behind his rise. And apparently it's making something of a wave there in England. So if you're interested in British politics, you might want to check this out. You can see the promotional blurb here. Looks like Starmer is not going to be taken out by parliamentary opposition or the gaggles of febrile British hacks, but by a low-key branded radical New York publisher based in the East Village. You have to give it to the left. They always find a way. That has not been my experience, but I appreciate the thought. This is me with Professor Wolf, who was kind enough to give me an interview. We'll see a little bit of that. So this is about 10 minutes of video I put together. We'll drop more extended versions of this clip, of these clips. I actually interviewed Shama and Calvin for almost a half an hour. All right, so we'll go full screen with this, right?
Yep, sounds good. Before we start, just one order of business, 1170 in the left. All right, let's full screen this and we'll get this started. And we'll see you guys on the other side.
My family, when I visit them in Paris, when we're there for dinner, the phone rings. Someone is interrupted. It's the person for their political party, I won't mention which, that is calling and saying, we need 2 from your household for this demonstration next week. And 2 people go. Because if you need something, the party will help you. And the party asks in return, when we need 50,000 people in 24 hours at the gates of the palace, you're coming. And they go. They grumble, they go. Organization is what makes France's socialists effective in a way we could be also.
A lot of working people believe that the things that they're doing, the mass deportations, the tariffs, the restrictions on visas, most recently H-1B visas, are going to provide prosperity, opportunity, jobs for the working class. Do you think that's wrong? And if so, why?
Yes, it's wrong because it's mistaking theater for reality. Let me be a professor of economics, which has been my job most of my life. The United States is a nation of 330 million people, one of the richest in the world, even now. Okay? The number of undocumented immigrants in America is estimated by the Department of Homeland Security to be 10 to 12 million, if that. Okay, simple proposition in all economics, left wing, right wing, center. There is no way on God's green earth that 10 to 12 of the poorest people in the world, that's what our immigrants mostly are, coming from Latin America with nothing. There is no way that those 10 to 12 million poor immigrants are determining the quality of life for 330 million people. This is crazy. And what it is an example of scapegoatism. The American people who believe this are hoping, without being aware of it, that something that doesn't affect them, the scapegoating of the immigrant, the deporting, will solve the problem. They hope that a tariff will solve the problem. They hope. What happens when the hope doesn't materialize? You know, when you throw the immigrants out, all of the crappy jobs at low wages that they performed will now have to be performed by Americans who demand, native-born Americans, demand higher wages. And if they get paid those higher wages, their employer will raise the prices. Where are you that you haven't solved the problem? You will discover that deporting all those people, besides being a cruelty for which no religion I'm aware of provides any moral support, beside that, will not solve the problem. And in the end, that's the greatest vulnerability, because there's nothing Mr. Trump has capable of solving those problems.
Study history. If you're able to travel, go to a country you're told not to like. It will be life-changing for you when you see how propagandized we are. But Rick is absolutely right. We do have this history here. It can happen again, and it must happen again. Yay. Thank you all.
I feel like we're moving into a new kind of days of lead in America, where you have very destabilizing political violence.
No, we aren't, because we're not organized well enough. That was a time of great organizations. The Black Panther Party, people were so popular, they had to turn people away. And they were crushed violently, people killed, like Fred Hampton was killed. Political prisoners who served decades in jail. So no, I don't think we're going to see that. That's the result of political organizing. So no, I don't think we're there yet. We will be the victims of state violence. That is my biggest concern right now, which is political violence.
Well, yes, and on that note, finally, do you feel that we're going to collapse into a fascist state? It seems like people kind of feel like we're at the end of one system, and it seems like the right is better organized to dictate what the next thing
They
looks
are
like.
better organized, but there's a big collapse coming. Economic collapse, ecological collapse. People don't talk enough about climate change. And what do we see now? These AI data centers which gobble up water, which gobble up electricity, which it's like accelerating something that's already happening. But the ecological collapse is the thing that people don't worry about enough. Economic collapse, and what was Richard Wolff talking about? War is the way out. That's what the Europeans are talking about now. They need to help Ukraine to pump up their economies, which are actually sinking because they got rid of Russian natural gas, which they needed. But that's my fear, that the people will come up with the answer of war for trying to stave off collapse. And what we need is a broad economic and societal change.
And what do you think people should do to help move towards that kind of change?
We have to be organized, as hard as it is, with the history of movements being crushed. We have to learn from those, and we have to keep fighting on.
Mobilize union members to push for mass strike actions. We're not going to be doing a fight oligarchy tour that turns people back into the Democratic Party. No, we want to use, if we win, we want to use that as a platform to call for a new party for the working class, which is a step that needs to be taken if we want to prevent fascism, let alone if we want to win socialism.
I understand that you guys really tore it up at karaoke. You did Billy Joel's New York State of Mind there, brought the house down. Is that true? Got a lot of sign-ups from that.
I'm not that cool. But we did talk about the need for a fight back, and a fight back that needs to involve also the need to defeat the bad ideas that prevail on the left, including the ties to the Democratic Party. So maybe a little less cool sounding than.
Nah, that's pretty cool.
But it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
But after this, we're gonna get you all drunk and go to karaoke, right? After that.
We will do karaoke. I suck at all of that.
No, I wouldn't.
I'm right now marveling at the olive oil. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
So Bakuni was very fiery, from what you're saying.
It was.
Yeah.
The most significant thing at CUNY is what are you looking for? Calvin and I left a little bit earlier, after I finished speaking, to come to the book event, and a bunch of people came out with us because they wanted to ask some questions, and it was very interesting. What they were saying was, maybe a lot of the people who were at the CUNY event were saying that the people who were there were all young people. They had all Donok or Zoran Mamdani,
right.
And they were all saying that the things that we were talking about, which is a real fight back, breaking from the Democratic Party, actually building a working class, organizing movement, that most of the Zoran Mamdani supporters they know of would support it. They would actually agree with us. So their question was, how do we make it happen? Because it doesn't seem like the Mamdani campaign is going to do it. So how do we make it happen? It's very interesting.
They were asking basically, how do we organize within the Mamdani campaign?
Yeah, among the people
to win the demands that Mamdani is campaigning on, but they're not convinced that he isn't necessarily going to be effective in fighting for them.
And not just him, the whole leadership of the campaign, the DSA leadership. These people who were saying there, young people who were there, they didn't have the confidence that it was not going to come, that leadership is going to come from them. So they were asking us, how do we organize the rank and file of the Mamdani campaign, which they suspect that they would strongly support what we were saying.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So they have an awareness that they're being sheepdogged, but they don't know what to do about it.
I don't know if
is that a fair?
I don't know if they would see it as sheepdogged. I mean, I think they do have they have some questions about Mamdani, but they generally have positive feelings. But I think they are convinced by. I think they are concerned and they're convinced by the points that we're making that Mamdani, his strategy of appeasing the Democratic establishment is not the strategy that's going to win those.
All right, there you have it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and we will drop that. That's about 22-minute interview that we did. I really wanted to do a more informal setting. That's something you really don't see. Like, you look back at a lot of documentary footage from the 60s and 70s of political figures, and they would do that a lot. Like, they would shoot them on the bus, just shooting the shit, hanging out at a club. And I don't know, man. There's like a certain lack of, I don't know, artistic flair. Like, nobody really does that. So I thought it was fun to get them in that setting. So like I said, it's about 22 minutes of that. But that's pretty interesting that their experience at CUNY was these kids are like, they want something more radical, and they're trying to figure out how to do it within the Mamdani campaign, but they recognize its limitations. I think there's a tendency, especially in our space, to assume that the supporters are naive. And I mean, now granted, this is a selective sample of people who would be showing up to a Shama event at CUNY. So, probably most of them are not hip to that, but some of them are apparently.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be, I think, reasonable awareness that you're going to have a lot more letdowns than victories, which is the game of electoral politics in general. So you have to ask yourself, okay, is it worth engaging anyway? Because with a guy like Mamdani, who just everybody is against, just like everybody was against Trump at the start, do you see some usefulness in pushing them through? Don't think they don't deal with this on the right. It seems as though Charlie Kirk was dealing with this in the last months of his life, whereas he's betraying us on Epstein. So what do I do? Do I go scorched earth against him? Or do I say publicly, I'm going to trust my friends in the government while trying to, get something out of them because you've come all this way. Now you have power. Do you detach yourself from that power structure? Or do you say, you know what, as much as they're letting me down on X, Y, and Z, I still have more influence if I keep that line of communication open? That's clearly something that Kirk was struggling with. And it's something that the Mamdani people are going to be struggling with too, if and when he wins. Now it's looking like he's pulling away like 20 points up. Like, looks like he's got this on ice.
Yeah.
Absent an October
nobody's
surprise.
even talking about Cuomo Radis.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Except when new indictments come down.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that's the question, right? The question is it worth engaging anyway? And I think with Mamdani, the answer there might be yes, because you're dealing with just clearly a cataclysmic moment in New York politics where you've got everybody who has access to a microphone is doing whatever they can to stop this guy, and none of it's working. So, like, there's real energy there. And the results of that, not only are they not going to be perfect, I don't even think they'll be good. Like, I think he's going to disappoint at a level that Trump is disappointing his base, who has any principles at all. But if you get those one or two things, is it worth it just for those one or two things and the sort of shake up to the system that comes with that? I mean, when you got everybody going, all in against this guy, there is something to be said for, we're going to be there's going to be 10 disappointments for every victory.
Sure.
but is it worth it anyway? That's a question the left hasn't had to ask themselves in a long time because we haven't had any victories, right? So, like, you know what I mean? And look, there are certain red lines, obviously, like AOC crossed, you know, these red lines, like going up there and lying for Kamala Harris, saying she's working tirelessly for a ceasefire. Like, I'm not saying you tolerate that, but do you play the kind of game that the MAGA people had to play if it gets you a taste of power and influence, and if you think it's worth it? That's the question. That's a different calculation for everybody, you know. And I'm not a New York City voter. I'm not a New York City organizer, so I don't know what I would do in that situation. I know I'd vote for him over Netanyahu's lawyer. Like, that's obvious. But beyond that, what investment do you make? I think that's a valid question for people to like debate.
Yeah. So somebody mentioned Medea Benjamin in the chat. You know, she was there, and the maniac who was drunkenly screaming at me that we're too nice to Chris Smalls was like chasing me. Like, I would have talked to Medea Benjamin because now I've met her before. She was like to my right, and I'm trying to get away from the drunk at the same time. But she was at the event. A running theme, going to what you're saying. A running theme was definitely what you saw there with Wolf, what you saw there with Shama, and with Kimberly. Yeah, the workers have to organize. Like, that's basically everybody's answer to this question. Like, how do you avoid fascism? You need to organize workers. You know, you need to show them an alternative in order to fight back against this. Wolf. His overall thesis is, yeah, in the end, you might go through a fascist period, but, you know, the Germans thought fascism was going to last forever. It didn't. Mussolini, he actually said that in part of his remarks. Mussolini thought it was going to last forever. It didn't. He's not saying, yeah, we might not go through a period like that, but he's optimistic that in the end, workers will reclaim their power. Now, I spoke to him before the event. We had limited time. He did give me a good contact. We've tried to get him on before, and it's not a good contact that we have. I got a better contact. I would love to have him on and get into questions that I didn't have time for, like, well, what about AI? What about automation? See, all of this assumes labor has the power it had in the past. What if you're living in a world where they don't really need us? They don't really need labor. How do you leverage strikes? How does a general strike work in a world where increasingly they don't need you? I'll be fascinated to see what he says, which hopefully we'll be able to ask him in person.
All right. Wonderful. All right. Dorian Marquise says, Tucker is late as usual. In 2024, Tucker's friend Clayton had an expert with a more plausible explanation. The planes were remote controlled before drone technology was huge. Hijackers, come on. Again, these are the kinds of things where, you know, these are the kinds of things where you get into starting to piece together an exact version of events that is ultimately, I think, unprovable as far as I know. But yeah, I mean, people do make those kinds of speculations. You're talking about the redacted guy, I'm assuming, right? Clayton, whatever their name is, Morris. Dystopian future is now. Thanks, Sparky. President Trump basically gave Ukraine and his Euro stooges a farewell pep talk. Hope it's a real goodbye, but I'll be surprised if it is. Well, it was not really a goodbye. He says we're going to keep arming NATO and they can do with the weapons what they want. That's a way of saying full steam ahead. That's what I heard. He said we're going to keep giving weapons to NATO. So
it's
where do you think
a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
They give us a lot of money for weapons.
Exactly. Okay. You know the two classmates who sit together giggling during important lessons and the teacher shouts, share with the class. Yeah, that's you two guys. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Dorian Markey. Appreciate that. Meanwhile, football. That's right. That's right. Bread and circuses forever, right? Okay. Paul Chu, thanks for being a member for 27 months, Paul Chu. Look at that. It's 2-year members. I'd love to hear you guys do impressions of how the adults in the room internally respond when Trump speaks. Yeah, that's kind of a mystery science. We could mystery science theater one of his speeches, which we sometimes do for like State of the Unions and stuff.
He is wearing a diaper. It's true. I hear the crinkling every time he sits and stands. I hear it crinkle and squish.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Funny. Russ is the bold one. Keats the wilting lily. Yeah, my travel radius is very small. It is. Usually. Judy Denmark, addicted to you, but don't forget you promised to have a movie matinee for all your European fans. I'm waiting. Yeah, we should have a film club matinee. We should do that for sure.
That would be good.
Maybe next month. Although we're doing something next week too, because we owe you guys two. But I think it's gonna have to be another evening. Enough of this Tucker guy. I want to know what Jeremy from the Quartering thinks of all this. Yeah, exactly.
Listen, man, I haven't had the time. I am very tempted to do some kind of a video essay about the reaction from those kinds of channels to the Kimmel thing, because it's fucking absurd. It's just absurd, man.
Silly says, "Oh, George, for another $50, let's have another cowbell for Oh George." Wow, look at this guy. Really trying to make up for that 9/11 attack today, Really trying to make amends for having attacked us.
I'm starting to think he was involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you one of the dancing Israelis? Were you one of the
Maybe.
Were you one of the artists? Yeah,
it might have been his uncle or something.
Yeah. Do you have a portfolio of still life paintings dated 1999 to 2002? Silly, I should have mentioned John has two interesting pods going now: Deep Focus with John K and Deprogram with Ted Rawl and John K. Silly, I tell you, silly. Thank you, George. You're the man. Appreciate you. Nizar G. See, Nizar G, who is Palestinian. See, we got a rumble rant from an Israeli and a rumble rant and a Palestinian. See, we're making good things happen here, folks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Heebs, I'll let you spoil the Tucker 9/11 doc, but you're not spoiling South Park for me. I'll pause and be back later tonight. Much love, cousins. Free Palestine. Much love to you, Nizar.
Thank you, man,
for that. Okay, what do we got over here? Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we have the other book event from last night. A tale of two book tours tonight.
Yes, a very, very different one. I don't think folks had as much fun at the Kamala event as people had at the Or Books event. So here is
Oh, sorry about that.
Why did that happen?
No, that was my bad because I didn't close it out properly. There you go.
Okay. All right. Let's set this up again. Kamala Harris had a book event tonight in which she was protested several times while trying to claim the old guy with the leaking brain. Yeah, I was against everything he stood for. I just didn't mention it in public while I was running for president when it might have helped me win. Harris distances herself from Biden as book tour begins amid pro-Palestinian protests. Divisions in the Democratic Party over Israel policy dogged former Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Yeah, she kind of brought that on herself. Former Vice President Kamala Harris, in the face of repeated interruptions from pro-Palestinian protesters, attempted to distance herself from then President Joe Biden's response to the war in Gaza on Wednesday evening during the first stop of her tour to promote her new memoir, 107 Days. Quote, "People in our administration can tell you what my voice was in those rooms, in those closed rooms in the Oval Office. I was not the president. I couldn't make the decision, but I made my position clear," Harris said before a crowd of roughly 1,500 people at the town hall, a venue in Midtown Manhattan. Harris, however, did not spell out specific policy differences she had with the administration in which she served. Well, you know what? I understand, you weren't the president, but you had a lot of really good opportunities to present that to the American public when you were fucking running for president.
Exactly, yeah.
You were interviewed several times,
right,
and asked questions about your views on this. You had many, 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 many opportunities to make it clear to the American public you had a different point of view. But of course, she didn't have a different point of view.
I just have to say, stories like this are a real blast from the past because, during the Biden years, we criticized the Democrats more because they were in power. And now that the Republicans are in power, we criticize the Republicans more. And so nowadays, with all of Trump's failings and just buffoonery, I think to myself, is there anyone dumber than these MAGA chuds? But then you do a story like this and you're like, yeah, there are. You're reminded. There are. Like, I'm sorry, how fucking stupid do you have to be to go to a Kamala Harris book event about her bullshit campaign and a memoir called 107 Days? Like, I'm sorry, they are still number one.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's part of what was so remarkable about this, because as you'll see in the footage, who knew Kamala has stands still?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like that she has stands. And I'm going to show you some of the responses on X, which are completely wrong. These people pride themselves on being the smart, informed people. And we're going to take that apart. I'm sure you didn't need any more evidence, but we're going to provide you with some. Okay, so this is some of the footage of Kamala being protested.
Your legacy is genocide! The blood of the Palestinians is on your hands! You pledged your full support for Israel while they shot babies, while they blew babies up, while they burned Palestinians alive! Your legacy is genocide! You care more about protecting an apartheid state than defending the rights of Americans! Shame on you!
When I first saw it, I was like, is that Kynan? No. It's
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
All right. Good for that kid, whoever he was. I haven't seen a name. So this is where she basically talks about how she used her inside voice.
Aaron, as you know, back to this point, it seems like, we need to talk about it a little bit more, is 5 months after October 7, I gave a speech at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in commemoration of Bloody Sunday. And I was the first person at the highest level of our United States government or administration to talk about the fact that the people in Gaza were starving.
Who are these?
That was a year and a half ago. And to talk, and people in our administration can tell you what my voice was in those rooms, in those closed rooms in the Oval Office. I was not
Keyword being closed.
Yeah, closed. Yeah.
I
was on your side the whole time.
But I made my position clear.
You didn't make your position.
Well, you made your position perfectly clear on CNN, on CBS. You did make your position clear. That's one of the reasons that you lost. But now she wants you to believe she had a completely different position than she presented to the American public that was litigating whether or not she should actually be the commander-in-chief. So finally, in this clip, you can see, and you always see this when you protest these Democrats, you have these fucking censorious prigs. Get out! We don't want you! I mean, look, I knew that you'd have people like that for like Rachel Maddow when me and Jose went and protested Maddow. It is amazing to me that anyone has that depth of feeling about Kamala Harris.
It's amazing that there's anyone here. It's amazing that there's anyone who's buying this book.
She packed the house.
Who could buy this book?
Well, I can't imagine the book is doing well. I'd be pretty fucking surprised, but I don't know. Why don't you look up some sales figures while we play this video? I'm actually curious now.
All right, I'll take
What side is she on?
I'm not president right now. There's nothing I can do.
I'm not president. There's nothing I can do. Yeah! I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Jesus Christ.
let's just, I understand the pain that that person just expressed. I understand what this moment is. It
torture to
whether
watch.
it be what's happening in Gaza or just so many things right now that are absolutely unconscionable and so painful to know could happen, and that our president and our government is standing by and allowing people like Putin and Kim Jong-un and
Kim Jong-un
to get away with whatever. They're laughing at us right now.
Oh, I thought she was going to this. What?
And so I get it, but I would like to continue with the conversation. And
Wow. So the guy's talking about Israel. I feel your pain. It's the guy's protesting Israel. Is like, yeah, I feel your pain. It's unthinkable that the president could let Putin and Xi and Kim Jong-un get away with it. What?
Yeah, so let's look back a little at what she was saying with her outside voice when she was, campaigning for president, when she had the opportunity to distinguish her position from the Biden administration's position. Harris doesn't support arms embargo on Israel, a top advisor says. Remember this? This is August 8th. Her national security advisor offered one of her first firm policy positions on the Gaza war a day after she had two exchanges with Palestinian supporters in Michigan, one cordial and one confrontational. You remember this? So this was her opening pitch. Her opening pitch was no change.
Right.
I'm not going to change anything that the administration is doing. Then it was about 2-3 weeks after they put out that statement. She went on CNN, and Dana Bash, for whatever reason, decided to do her fucking job. And really pressed her on that question of an arms embargo.
President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I am unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival.
Outside a concentration
Women were horribly
camp.
raped.
Debunked.
As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
The liberal buzzword
And
matters.
we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done.
Like
When
vague.
you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed, since I've been on October 8th, to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to change anything. But, I'd like to see a deal made. But in the meantime, we're just going to keep giving Israel weapons. And this really shows you how the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is rhetorical. It's rhetorical. Yes, she would have done exactly what Biden did, express concern while facilitating a genocide. Yeah, it's rough. That's rough. And by that time, the assault stories had been well debunked. And yet here she is repeating these, I think, 7-8 months after exposés had been written, after the New York Times had to withdraw its major story about that in light of lack of evidence and serious flaws in the journalistic process that had been undertaken, and the inexperience of the journalist who wrote the article. It was months after that she's making that claim in her interview. Now, we're not going to play this partly because 60 Minutes is a bitch, and partly because she just said the same thing in the 60 Minutes interview a few weeks after that. But Brianna commented, in response to a straightforward question about whether America has any influence to prevent Netanyahu's crimes, Harris just keeps repeating that America is committed to helping Israel defend itself. This is a genocidal ideology that should be resisted. Yes. And hey, straight from the horse's mouth. This is from October 2024, a few weeks before the election. A senior Israeli air official tells Haaretz that if not for the endless supply of U.S. weapons delivered by the Biden-Harris administration, its aggression against Gaza could have only lasted a few months. A vote for Harris is a vote for genocide. This is from Haaretz. The senior Air Force official told Haaretz that without the American supply of weapons to the IDF, especially the Air Force, Israel would have had a hard time sustaining its war for more than a few months. So, okay, you put all that together, you're categorically ruling out an arms embargo, and you already have reporting saying, yeah, no, we would not be able to sustain this without arms. But you were asked, hey, would you do an arms embargo? You were asked more than once, and you emphatically, one of the first statements put out by your campaign was that you would not do an arms embargo. So yeah, if Kamala had been president, she would have said stuff that would have sounded nicer than what Trump says. You wouldn't have gotten like, Kamala Gaza video, AI videos, that kind of thing, but the effect would have been the same. It's the same exact policy as the Biden administration. The fact that she wants to get up there now and tell you, well, no, behind the scenes, I was saying something. You could say that if you had never run for president.
Right.
That you could plausibly say, well, I was the vice president. It wasn't my place. But behind the scenes, you can't say that when you had the world's largest megaphone and you had every political incentive, as is certainly clear now, but in many ways was clear at the time. Look at what the conversation was leading into the election. There were so many people like ourselves. Me and Keaton talked about this when we were setting up the show. Yeah, man, if Kamala had come out and said, I'm going to stop arms sales to Israel on day one, we and a lot of people who nonetheless couldn't stand Kamala Harris for the sake of the Palestinian people would have felt an obligation to say, yeah, we're going to vote for Kamala and we recommend that you do too on that alone, because it would have been a meaningful difference.
Of course.
We were given no reason to vote for her. And there is, in spite of the fact that a lot of people want to make it about other things. And yeah, man, are there other things at play, including absolute lack of talent? Yes. Okay. Black woman, is that a hard road? Sure. But there is a lot of polling to show that if she had taken a different position on Palestine, she would have flipped certain states that would have allowed her to win.
Large majorities of swing state voters wanted an imposed ceasefire in the run-up to November. Not just swing state Democrats, swing state voters. So when you look at the results, she lost those Rust Belt states. She didn't lose them by that much. Lost them by a point and a half. You're telling me you couldn't make up 2 points by promising a ceasefire? You say, look, we're imposing a ceasefire on day one. If Israel breaks it, we're cutting off all aid. That's it. At that point, I think
would have changed the whole conversation.
Would have changed everything. Yeah,
and it would have put Trump on the back heel. He would have had a very hard time responding to that.
Right. Right. Because this war is not a war. This genocide is not popular with independents either. So there's a lot of ground you can kind of maneuver there.
Well, and you have a lot of people, again, like ourselves. I don't think we're the only ones who would have felt that way. Like, I can't stand her. but I mean, I can't stand him either. You got to remember, a lot of people who vote for Trump don't like Trump.
Exactly, yeah.
So you give them a strong enough policy reason not to vote for Trump, yeah, you can win a lot of those people over.
Yeah, like
you have your diehards, but that's a very small minority of people. Most people voted for him reluctantly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a perfect analogy would be the Mamdani race. Like, I'm not big on Mamdani, but if I lived in the city, I would vote for Mamdani because there's a meaningful difference between Mamdani and Netanyahu's lawyer, right? So if she had said, we're imposing a ceasefire on day one, and if Israel breaks it, all aid cut off, at that point, there's a meaningful difference between her and Donald Trump. I would have voted for her. She made no meaningful difference known. Because she doesn't support her husband's a fucking Israel supporter.
She married her AIPAC handler.
She's full of fucking garbage. She's just so full of garbage. This is why it's like it's unbelievable that anyone would buy this book, much less go to an event to hear her yap about it.
Well, and to that point, okay, so this was some of the chatter from the Democrat chuds. Janine, high priestess of anti-fascism, self-designated. She should tell them, well, you didn't vote for me. What am I supposed to do? How do you know that? How do you know that?
Yeah.
Giselle, you have a lot of people in that space who still vote blue no matter who. It's not necessarily a foregone conclusion they didn't vote for her. We didn't vote for her, but we don't know about the protesters. Giselle, I would like to know what exactly they want her to do. This is type of directionless protest does nothing but distract from protest that actually moves the conversation to action. Well, I would say the protest is about shifting the Overton window to rule the kind of bloodless ghoul like Kamala, who would empower a genocide and then try to disown it to make it impossible for her to do that in order to improve the decisions that our politicians make by giving them a disincentive to behave like the miserable scumbags they are. Maybe, you people claim to really believe in the Constitution and the First Amendment and norms and guardrails. Maybe you should look into the purpose of political protest in a theoretical democracy. But this is the one that's really crazy and shows how fucking moronic and uninformed these people are, even though they like to present themselves as the smart ones. She's not in power, and she recognizes the Palestinian suffering. She recognizes it. Somebody should drop leaflets about that on Gaza
We recognize
City.
you.
We recognize it. What exactly are they even protesting? What are they protesting? Did they protest Trump yesterday at the UN? Are they protesting J.D. Vance in North Carolina today? This is mental illness.
There's been protests at the UN all week.
Quite a few said this. Trump was at the UN up the street yesterday. Not a peep from these idiots. But yes, yell at the woman you refuse to give power to actually do anything. How fucking ignorant could you be to live in New York and say something like that?
Right.
Oh yeah, no. Trump, when Trump shows up, it's quiet. It's quiet. It's tea at the plaza when Trump shows up. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Abolish Israel and anti-Trump protesters create NYC chaos around UN. Nearly 60 arrested. There you go. It's a pretty big protest for you to miss. Write a comment. Here's people, old lady being arrested. Yeah, no, nothing. In fact, there's an event tomorrow. I want to shout it out. There were events all week of action for Gaza, events all week during this UN meeting. And there's another one tomorrow starting at 9 a.m. for anyone who can make it. If you're in the area, Doctors Against Genocide. Gaza's hospitals are taking their last breath rally. It'll be all day, starts at 9 a.m. They say to get to 46th and 2nd, or as close as you can get. It's a little unpredictable with the barriers and blockades they put up. They say look for the Palestine flags. So maybe you fucking geniuses want to go out and join the protest against Trump and Netanyahu and the administration, but you won't.
Right.
And that's why you would say something that's stupid and ignorant, because you'll show up to a town hall from one of the worst presidential candidates in the history of presidential candidates, somebody who never won an election, not in a primary, not in a general, who has never won a fucking election. You will pack out New York City's town hall, but be completely unaware that a few blocks away, at the time that the town hall was taking place, there were massive protests against Trump going on.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to worry. Kamala will not be there. She's going to be on to the next town peddling her bullshit book.
Yeah.
Trying to whitewash how just extraordinarily negligent she and her entire party were during that whole campaign and beyond that whole campaign. It's just really like you really can't hate these Democrats sufficiently. Like, even on the level of Trump and everything that's going on now, like you had a responsibility to do your best to win, just to win, to win. Never mind everything else, right? Nothing. I mean, it really dates back to Barack Obama beating the Democratic establishment and then elevating the worst factions from that Democratic establishment that he defeated by putting in Biden as vice president, Hillary Clinton as secretary of state. Every decision from there flows in the wrong direction, and here you are.
Well, in the end, he didn't beat the Democratic establishment. He convinced them he'd be a better avatar.
Right. Well, that's what I it's quote marks. He beat them, right?
Yeah.
Right. What he outmaneuvered the old model.
Yeah.
Right. That's
exactly.
what he did. All right. Hey folks, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, the best way you can do so is by becoming a member. Our members are the backbone of the show. You could subscribe at dudissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. You get bonus content like Film Club live streams and extended members only live streams, which we do once a month, complete with call-in Q&As on both of those. We also do a Q&A every Sunday night, which members are invited to call into. So that's fun. You get your name up in lights here on the patron scroll. You get a credit at the end of our upcoming Uhuru documentary, who, by the way, our friend Eric just sent us a hard drive of all his footage. His drone photography looks amazing. So really great work by Eric. Thank you, Eric, for doing that for us. I'm just starting to watch this stuff. It all looks really great. So we're really excited about that. And also, you get ad-free replays of every live stream the day after they air in public. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with the commercial interruptions on the main platforms, you get a commercial-free full-length replay of every show. That's a perk that people are really enjoying. So you guys are the backbone of the show. We thank you very much for your support. The links are up there. dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, and Locals. Starts at just $5 per month. Doc Durkin says, thank you, DD, for all your due diligence on Gaza. With all the cognitive dissonance in the USA on so many levels, the Gaza movement is uniting people on the right and left. This is real. I agree. Thank you. And that is a hope. Tommy D, 71, South Park is pushing the Netanyahu is to blame narrative. Sure. Yeah, that's why I said, I didn't even think the episode was, great, and I didn't think they went as hard as they should have, but too hard for Betar, right?
That's not hard.
That's not hard. Russ, I absolutely love that setting of your filming. It was like the old pre-internet days. More of that. And next time, get Norman F. Please visit Shama in Seattle and hold on event. Yeah, we are definitely planning.
Well, she's got a big event on October 12th that we can't make it. I mean, obviously Keaton can't, but I'm getting all my ducks in a row before I leave the country for 5 months. I can't be traveling right now.
Oh, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Gary, who sent us. I have one for you, Russell, too. He sent this to us at our P.O. box.
So cool.
So thanks,
Dude,
Gary.
I have your Glenn Ross poster. I have your fucking suitcase sitting here. When are you coming to the city?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I got to get the suitcase. I'll figure that out. All right, we'll make that happen sometime soon. Yes, we do have to exchange some stuff. The better title is 107 Days of Who Gives a Fuck. Yeah, good one. Thank you for that. I like this one. Waiting for Kamala's tell-all follow-up book, 107 Dicks. We'll sell like Afghan food at an anti-immigrant rally. Good one, Get Up King. I like that. Thank you. That would be a great memoir. People would line up for that, I think. Sell a lot better.
107 inches. My time with Willie Brown.
Yeah, right, exactly. Lots of back padding for voting. That very independent thinker Jill Stein, who recounted votes for states like HRC, lost in 16. Remember, high horse are difficult ride. I do remember that, RBGHM. Where's Michael Savage in the intro, Russ? You promised. We're working on it. It's not there yet. It's not done yet. New intro's not done yet. But yeah, he'll be in there. In the immortal words of Peter Potamus, did you get that thing I sent you? I emailed you guys about a sponsorship and didn't hear back. Let me know if I can pay you to talk about my thing. We will get back to you. Everything's in rotation, but thank you. I will take a look at that. Appreciate that very much. Camilo Chavez says the Trump storyline in SP is not landing and the ending was very lazy writing. South Park is milquetoast when handling Israel and Palestine. I agree. Like I said, I didn't think it was like a great episode. I didn't think they really delved into it as much as they probably could have or should have. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. Hi from England, guys. Kamala 2028. Thank you for that very much. Randy Ray says, just wondering, have you guys ever seen the Vanessa Redgrave documentary, The Palestinian, that came out in 1977? And if so, how was it? I didn't. I know she was a supporter of Palestine, but I never saw that movie.
Listen, man, I could tell you because I was a little kid in Hebrew school. The way they fucking demonized Vanessa Redgrave when I was a kid, like you would think she was fucking Lucretia Borgia.
Oh yeah,
they demonized her.
Oh yeah.
This is why these fucking Zionists are the way they are. I can tell you, I was exposed to that brainwashing from an early age. It just didn't take. Why? I don't know. I think it's partly because I grew up with Italians, so like I always kind of had perspective. You know, like they weren't able to like completely immerse me in that way of looking at things. I was always like rebellious. So when I would ask questions and they had no answer for it, I wasn't the type to let it go. Between the two, you know, it just didn't get me. But I know how it happens to these people like fucking Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah, I'm a little kid saying, I like Elvis. That's no good because he has no connection to Israel. He's not like an Israel figure. Why don't you listen to Neil Sedaka?
Yeah.
He sells Israeli savings bonds. That's the whole measure of the world they want you to see things through. That's what you see in these people like Larry Ellison, right? Everything is it good or bad for Israel? They really brainwash you into that from childhood.
Yes, indeed. Raven Lass says Kash Patel always looks like he's in the middle of a gargantuan shit. Kamala talks like she's in the middle of a gargantuan shit. Talks like an airhead. Thank you. If Kamala was president, we'd already be in World War III. She's literally married to AIPAC. She married her handler. Yeah, I mean, I agree with half of that. I think that Trump is marching us there. I think we're on our way. Ukraine is an Israeli project. All wars are. Thank you for that. The Yuppie says, this is apropos of nothing, but I watched Metropolis for the first time. Absolutely incredible and a clear class conscious narrative.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was partially inspired by RUR, which is a Czech play that was really ahead of its time. I think it was written in like 1911. And that is the play we get the word robot from.
That's right.
And it's very much like a class uprising with the robots as a metaphor for workers.
All right, folks, we got one more segment of the day, so hang on in. More bad news here. What we know about the shooting at the Dallas ICE facility. So I just took the most recent developments on this from this morning. A shooter opened fire at a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Dallas Wednesday morning, leaving one detainee dead and two others wounded. Detainee, not ICE agents, so migrants. No law enforcement officers were hurt. The gunman died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the authorities said. 3 people familiar with the investigation who were not authorized to speak publicly identified the shooter as Joshua John. Department of Homeland Security officials, along with some state and national leaders, have said the shooting was a targeted attack on law enforcement agents, even though law enforcement agents were hit. They have pointed to ammunition the shooter left behind that had the phrase anti-ICE in blue writing. Well, that's convenient again. But officials have not released other details about the shooter or his potential motive, And the New York Times has not independently verified the DHS officials' claims. So here is where the anti-ICE comes from. This is tweeted out by Kash Patel that day. This is the first piece of evidence we get is anti-ICE on one of the casings. So Kash tweets out here, this morning, just before 7 a.m. local time, an individual fired multiple rounds at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility, killing one, wounding several others before taking his own life. FBI, DHS, ATF are on the ground with Dallas PD and state authorities. While the investigation is ongoing, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack. See photo below. One of the unspent shell casings recovered was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. More updates will be forthcoming. These despicable, politically motivated attacks against law enforcement are not a one-off. We are only miles from Prairie Land, Texas, where just 2 months ago an individual ambushed a separate ICE facility targeting their officers. It has to end, and the FBI and our partners will lead these investigative efforts to see to it that those who target our law enforcement are pursued and brought to the fullest extent of justice. Thankfully, no law enforcement personnel were injured. Please pray for the injured and deceased. So here is a video from the Today Show this morning. Like I said, kind of most recent developments that we'll get from here. Is about 3 minutes.
There are many questions this morning about what led to a deadly shooting at an ice field office in Dallas. Authorities say the gunman fired multiple rounds at the facility from a nearby rooftop Wednesday morning.
Si pueden escuchar, so you hear the gunshots. Yeah.
Denise's Robleto was in the parking lot waiting for her mother, who was inside, when she heard the gunfire and started recording on her phone. I was with my sister praying. God help us, she said. Investigators say the shooter killed a detainee in a transport van and critically wounded 2 others before taking his own life.
The shooter obviously didn't know who was in the vehicle. He was just randomly shooting at windows.
No officers were hurt in the attack, but investigators believe the gunman was targeting law enforcement, releasing this image of a bullet casing found near the shooter with anti-ICE written on it. Photos released by DHS also show bullet holes in a window and an American flag inside the facility. Multiple senior law enforcement officials identifying the suspected shooter as 29-year-old Joshua Jan. In an interview with NBC News, the shooter's brother describing him as someone who didn't have strong feelings about ICE, adding he wasn't interested in politics on either side as far as he knew. President Trump blaming the shooting on what he called radical left Democrats, constantly demonizing law enforcement and comparing ICE officers to Nazis.
If your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell.
This morning, the mayor of Dallas calling for peace and unity.
To support one another, help us all get through this very difficult time, not just in our city, but in our country.
Priscilla, at this point, what more do we know about the suspect or even his background?
Yeah, Craig. So NBC News spoke with the brother of the suspect, and he said that while his parents owned a gun, his brother was by no means a marksman. He also said that both of them were Boy Scouts growing up, and we did speak with a Boy Scout trooper who has known the alleged shooter since he was a teen, and he described a conversation several years ago about the migrant caravans that were heading into the U.S., and he said that the shooter expressed being upset with how immigration was being handled in the country and the idea that people did not understand the desperation of people to try to get out of a bad situation. But that trooper also said that he did not know the shooter as someone who was violent. He knew him as someone who was against gun violence. So he found it surprising to find that he would be responsible for an attack like this. Craig?
All right, Priscilla Thompson starting us off there in Dallas. Priscilla, thank you.
Sounds like the kind of guy who could be, radicalized by the deep state. Sounds like an MK Ultra subject. I mean, it all sounds similar. Like these stories all have that similar component to them.
Where it doesn't really make any sense. It's not the guy who was the member of the local, Antifa activist group, right? It's never one of it's
never one of them, right?
It's very random. Butler, Kirk,
Yeah,
everybody should read Chaos. Everybody should read Tom O'Neill's Chaos.
The Dallas police responded to a call, this is back to the article, for assistance at 6:40 a.m. on Wednesday around the ICE field office. Officials determined after their initial investigation that a gunman, who they described as a sniper, had fired at the ICE building from a nearby rooftop. The attacker fired indiscriminately, they said, including at a van where the victims were hit. Again, sniper fire is not usually indiscriminate, right? So that's another thing. One detainee died and 2 others were in critical condition. Officials have not released the names of the victims, but Mexico's foreign ministry said in a statement that one of the people injured is a Mexican national. Following the shooting, Kristi Noem, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, directed the department to enhance security protocols at ICE facilities nationwide. One of the people familiar with the investigation said Mr. John was 29, or Jan, according to the report. Public reports show that he was raised in a suburb of Dallas and as recently as a few months ago had been living with his parents who are from Kansas. The family home is in a rural area north of Dallas and Fort Worth that is rapidly developing. Mr. Jan's political leanings are unclear from what has been uncovered so far. On 2 Reddit accounts, he wrote mostly about video games, cars, South Park, and marijuana. Another kind of sounds like a loner Reddit kid, right? Which is what the profile of Robinson was too. He voted in a Democratic primary in March 2020 in Texas, records show, but he was also registered to vote as an independent in Oklahoma, where his parents own property and where he voted in the 2024 general election. Mr. John was indicted in 2016 for selling marijuana, records show. A few years later, he was released from court supervision for the charge, and the proceedings were dismissed. So here are some responses to Kash Patel's tweet of the evidence, which, why is the director of the FBI posting evidence of a crime in an ongoing investigation? I'm not into conspiracy theories, but that anti-ICE on just 1 bullet is the fakest shit I've ever seen. This is the thing. Like, the first thing we see hours after the shooting is a tweet from the FBI director with anti-ICE written on a casing. Like, that's the first thing that comes out. Nobody believes this shit. Why didn't he kill any ICE agents? Only detained immigrants. This makes no sense and really seems to be an instigator trying to whip up justification to crack down on Americans opposing secret police. And this guy here released the Epstein files. This is the thing. Like, this Department of Justice and FBI, with that memo on the Epstein files, they torched all credibility that they had to the point where now, in my opinion, you've dug yourself a hole where people are not inclined to believe you, especially when your agenda is so obvious. Like, you're so quick to want to pin this on the left to make a political point and to use as a pretext to crush free speech and civil liberties, that when this is the first thing you tweet out just hours after the shooting, at a shooting where no ICE officers were hit, only migrants were hit, it was a politically motivated shooting, you'd think he would be, precise in his targeting. This doesn't seem to be that to me. This seems to be, if we are to take this at face value, a disturbed kid. That's a pattern. That's a pattern. And yes, I'm sorry, like, these lonely, chronically online people are the kind of people who would be radicalized in these MK Ultra type of ops. Like, this clearly seems orchestrated. And I would include at this point, not that I can't prove any of this, but if we're just speculating, the Luigi had writings on the shell casings, right? There were supposedly writings on the shell casings for Kirk. I haven't heard anything about that since it came out.
Well, even with him, man, the fact that he was able to get out of Manhattan, like, you can't walk to the corner without being on 5 cameras in Manhattan.
Yeah.
How the hell did he get out of Manhattan? Like, the whole...
No, this seems orchestrated. This violence seems orchestrated, what Max describes a strategy of tension.
Right.
Egg on a social collapse. Because, as we mentioned in the first segment with the Flotilla, you see the power that people have non-violently when they band together and when they are bound by their common humanity. That is ultimately the only reliable defense against tyranny, against authoritarianism, against abuse at the hands of the state, against exploitation at your place of work. Like the only thing that's going to stop that is solidarity among people. And it seems like there is a concerted effort to undermine that. And, Max talks about, 2020 being, if not the starting point, the real accelerating point. And he traces it back to 2020 when obviously look at all the stuff around COVID with that. And then look at all the stuff around BLM and Kyle Rittenhouse with that. And then look at January 6th. And then even to a lesser extent, Ukraine, people were getting thrown off social media for that. There was a lot of censorship around that. There's just so much of this feels like it's instigated by people who stand to benefit from a collapse of the social order. And once that kind of clicks in your head, I think that has to kind of alter your perspective on these things. Like now we're seeing this shooting, another shooting that just doesn't really make any sense. When these things start happening over and over again, and you see the clear agenda on the part of the state to use them as pretext. This is why I asked questions about 9/11 early on, because as soon as I saw that they were using 9/11 to justify attacking a country that had nothing to do with 9/11, I started asking questions about the event itself. It just, to me, that's basic logic. That just stands to reason that you would do that. Same thing here with all of these events. They're so quick to put a political spin on it, using the same kind of quote unquote evidence that they've been using all along. Now it seems to be a thing that people are writing messages on the shell casing. That started with the Luigi thing. Like you're seeing a pattern here. And when you start to ask yourself who benefits, I think you have to say that, we are living through a strategy of tension that's being orchestrated by these rentier oligarchs who stand to benefit from a collapsed society.
Yeah, it often feels like we're in a digital house of mirrors where we're just constantly being fed distorted images of reality and mistaking it for reality. We're living in a constant state of mass formation psychosis. And that's how they want us. I mean, going back before 2020, going back to 2000, for a while, the Bush administration, whenever something politically inconvenient was in the headlines, would call an orange alert until it stopped working, because after a while, people were like, well, boy who cried wolf. When you think about it, when you look at the rhetoric, when you look at the framing, you've got a country of 330 million people. Why are we constantly obsessed with this violent incident or that violent incident? Because your attention is being focused on it, and you're being told to obsess on whether it's a violent incident or a culture flashpoint. You're being told to, or a foreign policy adventure. For the average person, do they organically really have strong opinions about most of the things that they walk around having strong opinions about? Or are they being constantly programmed to be on one or the other side of a divide, an largely artificial divide, and to define themselves in those terms and to spend a lot of their energy fighting other citizens? Isn't that convenient? Your energy is never really being used fighting power, fighting people more powerful than yourself. Your time and energy is supposed to be consumed fighting people who are basically on your level. Workers, middle management. You're going to fight with people over these cultural provocations. And now it's tipping over into beyond, tampons in the boys' bathroom and getting into what you think about the guy who shot up the ICE facility. And of course, that's one step away from, if you're going to buy into this, if you're going to allow scum like Benny Johnson, Eric Doherty, the rest of these people who take their marching orders from the administration while pretending to be independent voices. If you're going to listen to them, they're going to march you right into a fascist takeover of the country. This is all J.D. Vance getting up there, getting really angry. You know, I would love to see somebody ask J.D. Vance how much money he has invested in farmland that's collapsing in value right now because of the tariffs. You're being manipulated into building a police state where what little you have now, you're not even going to have that, and you're not going to have any means to fight back because they'll have taken away your First Amendment by making you obsess about Jimmy Kimmel and a joke that he made that you don't like. And they're going to put you in a position where all your Second Amendment ain't going to mean shit because they'll have built out a national police force under the pretext that it was for the immigrants when the whole time it was really for you.
Yeah, the First Amendment is first for a reason. If you don't have the ability, and, you know, Tucker did a thing on this last night. I didn't watch all of it. But he has said in the past, he says, look, you have, according to our founding documents, we have, it's not granted by the government, it's granted by God, whoever that is, depending on what your beliefs about that are. You have a God-given right to say what you think is true. That means to speak whatever opinion you want. And you are not allowed to direct acts of violence at people or directly threaten acts of violence against people. That is the bridge too far, and nobody says you should be allowed to threaten people in that way. But you have a God-given right to express your opinion, and according to our founding documents, the government is bound to protect that right. It is not a right that they grant you. It is a right that you have by virtue of being born. It's inalienable, and they are obligated to protect it. And except for extreme circumstances where people are making direct threats and commands of violence, they have the obligation to uphold that inalienable God-given right. And fear is a very powerful mechanism by which to take that away from people. And once that goes, everything else goes. It all goes with that. None of these other, I mean, that's why it's number one, because that's the first domino to fall. And once that falls, that's it. You're done. We're done. There is no free society anymore past that point. And I think a lot of these events are orchestrated provocations to get us to hate each other so much that we feel a need to infringe upon each other's rights. What was COVID? I mean, you heard people, you heard Sean Penn during COVID talk about unvaccinated people using violent metaphors, saying, well, you have rights, but you don't have a right to walk around with a gun pointed at me. Meaning, I mean, how absurd is this? A guy without a vaccine is pointing a gun at someone because he's going to breathe on them and get them sick, right? So when you are provoked into fearing the other that much, that is how they get you to justify taking that person's right away, because they are convincing you that that other person is a threat to you. And the only way to neutralize that threat is to take their rights away. And that was one obvious chapter in this. And I believe all of this other stuff is a chapter of this. I think these provocations are all serving one motive. And so the solution is organization. The solution is not to be baited by them into engaging in these culture war provocations in ways that's going to get you fucking fired from your job or all that shit like that. The way to do this is, and don't forget, and I'm not saying like if you were wrongfully terminated, I'm not saying you don't have a case there, but I'm just saying as a strategy, right? If we're making recommendations, the recommendation is to organize around common humanity and beat this back. And look, what did we see? Jimmy Kimmel's back on the air. He's back on the air, right?
And
they lose in the end.
And look,
they lose. They don't win.
People physically showed up to protest, and this is part of why things like, to bring it full circle, the event I attended yesterday are so important. And if you want to support Or Books, From the Flag to the Cross, collection of essays about fascism in America, but what everyone agreed on, Richard Wolff, Shama, Margaret Kimberly, the common theme was exactly what Keaton is saying. You need to organize. Working people need to get together. They need to set aside their differences and understand who the real enemy is. And I must say, we need to develop more opportunities for people to get away from these screens and meet each other face to face.
Exactly, which is what we're going to do right now, because that is the conclusion of the show.
Yeah.
So we'll take some Rumble rants and super chats and then close the lights on another week. Dan Richmond. Hey, Dan, can you guys explain why libs love these terrible politicians who lost embarrassingly? You'd think they'd want them to go away. First HRC and now come up. Yeah, no, exactly, man.
Yeah, everyone's programmed.
It's fucking insane. Like I said, we play straight here. We're not partisans here. When the Democrats were in power, that's where we focus. Now that the Republicans in power, that's the majority of our focus. And so, yeah, man, doing that Kamala segment, seeing those fucking morons in the crowd reminded me.
It's amazing
of what the
to
other
me.
side is. Right?
Honestly, I didn't think she had devoted fans like that at this point. It
Absolutely
surprised me.
insane. Yeah, absolutely insane. Just like, when Biden was in power, we forgot how insufferable the MAGA chuds were because they weren't relevant, so we weren't really paying much attention to them.
Right.
And now that these guys are in power, we haven't really paid these libs much mind. But then you look at them and you're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?
Jesus,
what is wrong with you?" Yeah,
we don't want you here.
Yeah, we don't want you here. Exactly. JB, it help if more grassroots candidates ran. Sure thing.
I think you're going to see more of that.
I think you will too. KN Kareen says Trump lied and said he would bring peace, so peeps voted for him instead of her.
Yeah.
That's true. There was a lot of bullshit. Well, he lied about free speech too.
He lied
did this
about
whole
everything.
6-minute video about how he's going to uphold the First Amendment. Yeah. No, they just bullshitted about everything. Mark Pugliese, boy, it reminds you of how they keep Congo all fucked up so they can keep bleeding it. Yep. Thank you, Mark.
I have a book about Congo. What is it? Red Cobalt that I haven't gotten to yet. I keep meaning to read. It was recommended by viewers.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, hey, one way to meet friends is to watch sports. So let's do an ad. Hey, football fanatics, are you ready for some primetime NFL action? Tune into Westwood One for all the gridiron glory you crave. From jaw-dropping touchdowns to game-changing plays, don't miss a moment of the excitement. Catch every snap, every tackle, and every victory on Westwood One. You can listen to the NFL on the NFL app, on the Westwood One Sports app, on WestwoodOneSports.com via Westwood One station streams, or by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports. If it's the NFL, it's on Westwood One. Okay. Race Car says, I like the cut of your jib, boys, or maybe it's gin. Who knows? Could be. That helps. Let's see. You two should run for office. Russell could run like Zoran, shaking hands, kissing babies on the streets and interviews, and Keaton could run from the basement like Biden. Yeah. Bronx Comrade, DD is the hardest working podcast, bringing humor and clarity. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's a lovely compliment. Let's see. RB Ham says, I did an episode a year ago predicting there would be an avalanche of false flag operations for the precise purpose of pushing a fascist backlash. Who benefits? It's a no-brainer. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, my friend. Eric Rousseau says Kamala called Trump a communist, is thus MAGA communism Hinkle spoke of. Yeah, exactly. He's a communist dictator. She said that as part of the Maddow interview as well.
Oh, did she?
Yep. Yes, indeed. All right, folks. Well, hey, that is our show. Thanks for another week of action-packed podcasting. Appreciate you all as always. We are off for the next couple days. We are back on Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks to the Rumblers, thanks to the YouTubers. Appreciate you all being here very much. Thanks to the mods, of course, for keeping the peace in the chat. We will see you all back here on Sunday. Andy Gardner got one super chat in. Have a wonderful weekend. Get some rest so you can have beautiful doe eyes like Pam Bondi. There you go. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that. Appreciate you all very much. Thanks for spending the afternoon with us. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.